It is funny though, Adam, I see you on Twitter with like all the Baltimore stuff. This is the most, since I've known you, by far, the most excited I've ever seen you about any of your teams. Usually it's like you're stoked on this.
Yeah, no, I am very high on the Orioles. Oh, that's cool. From where?
Like Mexico.
I meant like what team is it? I can't see it. It's below your. I don't know which minor league team that is.
Is that the Mexican baseball league?
I'll say that means like good luck.
Yo, good afternoon, early evening, whatever it is. Welcome to the Stokastic.com MLB Deeper Dive. No basketball today. It returns tomorrow. Maybe Boston goes on to be the first team ever to overcome a deficit down 3-0. We'll see. Figure that one out tomorrow. But for now, we're talking baseball. I'm Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D. Very happy to have you guys with us as always. 12-game Friday slate. Big one as always. Joined by Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. What's going on, brother?
How's it going, man? Looking forward to talking 12 games. I think it's a really interesting slate.
Yeah, no question. There's just looking through it, there's a lot of pitchers too where I won't say a lot, but there's a couple pitchers that are kind of cheap where you go, yeah, this guy could get blown up or he could have 8 strikeouts tonight.
Yeah, it's a really weird slate. Like, I think it's gonna be a fun tournament slate. I have Fantasy Cruncher running now just to kind of have a little bit better idea of what things are looking like for me. Because like doing the show with Josh this morning, there were so many spots where it's just like, yeah, I kind of like this spot. It looks the same as like the 12 other spots we most recently talked about. There's spots where the offenses look okay, the pitching looks okay in the same game. It's a really interesting slate where like outside of like you have the Mets as far and away their own thing, but outside of that, it's just like so many offenses are the same and ownership's pretty flat. So it seems pretty interesting.
Mike, is that what's going? Is that why Jordan is out? Like, is that a real thing? Oh, I've missed shows for that before. Anyway, happy to have you guys here. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel as well. All that stuff goes a long way. So just take one single second, move your finger on the mouse or on your phone, tap, click, whatever it is. Hit that thumbs up so we can get on our way. We got 12 games to talk about, so we'll make sure to spend the time on the important stuff. Maybe not so much on some of these other games, but like Adam said, there's a few spots where you're like, okay, this is a really good spot on, or not really good, but a decent enough spot as far as pitching goes, but also has some value for stacks. So let's dive into this one. We'll go right out of the gate with San Diego Padres. Small money line favorites on the road against the Yankees. 8.5 point total here. So, okay, let me start on, on the lesser known side here. Actually, Mike, are these backwards? they are, but that's fine. I'll start with San Diego. It's fine. San Diego, you got Musgrove, Randy Vasquez. What do you make of a guy like Vasquez today? This is one of the guys I wanted to start off asking you about, because on one hand, he's what, minimum salary, not exactly a great matchup, not the best park, a bunch of different things. But on the other hand, decent enough strikeout rate in the minor league level. Is there anything here that you could look at and go, hey, he's so cheap that on a Coors slate, maybe I'll get some of this guy in there and just hopefully he can give me 7 Ks and not get blown up?
So I think that would be a reasonable way to approach it if a Coors slate still meant that hitters were expensive, but it doesn't. So that's kind of the problem I'm running into. He is undoubtedly underpriced, and that is not an endorsement of his talent or anything. It's just that he's a starting pitcher that is 4K. Every single starting pitcher with any sort of competence is too cheap if they're 4K. So he's clearly underpriced, but the reason that he's going to be tough to get to very often is that, one, it is a tough matchup against the Padres, like you said, but it's just not going to be necessary in most spots. You have some pretty quality pitching at the top that's, all around 9K, a couple guys around 10K with Gossman, Keller, and Brown, but you've got pretty strong, upper mid-range pitching on this slate. And there's just so many cheap bats that he ends up not really being necessary. If you do find yourself building a lineup where you just you're like, man, I really like this lineup, but I only have 4K left at SP2, then by all means click on him. He's fine. Decent strikeout stuff in the minors. I talked about it this morning. The bat projects him for an 18% strikeout percentage going forward. I've said it a lot on these shows. They are typically the bat projection system when it comes to minor league players, I think typically gives you a pretty good idea of the low end of their projection range. The ATC model on FanGraphs has him at 22% with a 4.3 FIP. He projects to be perfectly fine. Struck out 25.5% of hitters at AAA this year, but it just doesn't strike me as a slate where I'm going to need to get there all that often.
What about Joe Musgrove on the other side of this? He's allowing 2.25 home runs per 9 this season. Not great. And it's funny too, because you look at his ISO against lefties, it's actually higher than the ISO he's allowing.
Yeah, it's righties where he's gotten
very unlucky.
Yeah. So Musgrove is always one of the more difficult pitchers for me to really be confident in what I'm saying about him, because we've seen him be so back and forth over the last few years. He's always been somebody that I thought should be good. So I do believe he has a good amount of underlying talent, but we've also seen him be one of the most impacted guys by the sticky stuff ban. He dropped off pretty strongly when that happened. Then magically he turned things around to the point where it seemed like he just found a new way to do it. Then this year he's come out and not been very good. You mentioned the power numbers: 217 expected ISO to lefties, 226 to righties. Now he has gotten extremely unlucky against righties, 371 actual ISO, 516 actual WOBA. He's been bad. He hasn't been that bad.
Wait, 516 WOBA, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
358 expected. So definitely can't look at, the 5.82 FIP and think that that's that's real, or the 2.25 home runs per 9. But he hasn't been very good overall. 22% strikeout percentage. He has gotten hit hard, just not, as hard as his numbers suggest that he has. But at the end of the day, that kind of just gives you a $7,500 pitcher in a mediocre matchup against the Yankees. Definitely not overly excited to get to this one. It is a weaker lineup still than usual without Donaldson or Stanton, but it's still a dangerous lineup. He's okay at 7,500. He's showing up 6% of the time in the crunch I'm running right now. He's projected in that ballpark ownership wise, but it's not somebody that I expect to get to a lot. It's not somebody that I'm looking at and saying oh, wow, they're going under-owned. I really like them in tournaments. It's more so just somebody that if you're playing 150 lineups and he happens to show up here and there, fine. If you're playing 3 lineups, I would be very surprised if Musgrove shows up.
I haven't watched a ton of Musgrove this season, but I do wonder if he's just completely missing spots, because his ground ball rate is down 10%.
That's interesting.
45% to 35%. Fly ball rate's up considerably. His soft contact rate is in the gutter. He's this is because this is a guy that's been not like an extreme ground ball pitcher, but not someone that gives up a ton of hard hit fly balls. That has not been the case this season. So it's not a huge surprise to look and go, okay, well, he's allowing way more home runs than he ever has in his career.
Yeah. And it goes back to the underlying theory with Musgrove of, is he cheating or not? Because he typically can't really throw the ball where he wants to when he isn't.
Yeah, right. So what about Yankee bats then?
I mean, I think they are good in tournaments. They are one of like, I don't know, 16 offenses that are going to look pretty much the same. This slate offensively is really, really strange. You have the Mets with like a 7 implied run total just doing their own thing. You have the Braves and the Astros right around 5.5. And then you just have a bunch of offenses at like 4.5 implied run totals, the Yankees being one of them. So I like the upside that they give you. I don't think that they stand out as being anything special in terms of like compared to other offenses. They're pulling 3% ownership, 3% chance to be in the top stack, 3% chance to be in the top value stack, 3.4 stack score, low owned, efficiently owned. They're just a middle of the pack team. And I think there's a lot of comparable teams today. But, that being said, I do like the upside they offer. Aaron Judge obviously is going to be a great play on every slate. And we just mentioned the amount of right-handed power that Musgrove's given up this year. Gleyber Torres, a strong second base option. You have Rizzo left-handed in Yankee Stadium. You have a cheap DJ LeMahieu, not the most exciting hitter, but at least he's cheap batting cleanup. Willie Calhoun's a cheap left-handed bat here. So the Yankees look good. It's just there's a lot of teams that look similar.
Padres bats top 5 top stack percentage, so 5th highest in the top stacks tool today for MLB over at Stochastic. 50% off any package you want, whether it's weekly, monthly. You guys know that. Link in the description and in chat. Top stacks, top pitchers, top hitters, ownership, player projections, MLB lineup generator. You can get that half off for the week if you wanted to just go a la carte for $4.48. But yeah, everything down there. If you guys are looking to get into that, some really, really good entry points if you're trying to check these tools out that have won a lot of people a lot of money this season already. But yeah, 5.7. I mean, you mentioned it right at the top of the show, so I don't want to belabor the point. It's the Mets as far as top stack percentage goes in our tool today at 21%. And they're also by far the top value, as you mentioned, that Coors isn't, these guys aren't, this isn't Trevor Story and this isn't, was it Tulowitzki? Remember when he was like 8,000 or something insane?
I don't remember 8, but I remember it being.
I think it was like 7,700 or something at one point.
Was he really?
Yeah. Yes. I think I could probably go back and find it.
I do remember when it was just like bats in Coors or 6K plus, no matter what.
It maybe not. He was over 7K at one point. I know that.
That's insane.
I know that, but it's not the case. Top value, top stack percentage is 21%, and the top stack score is 17.7% on the Mets. I don't want to get there yet. I'm just saying everything else after that, outside of maybe Houston, is completely flat.
Yeah, it's, the Yankee or the Mets at the top, 21% chance of being the top stack. Houston second at 9%. There's like 12 to 15 teams between 2.5% and 6% of being the top stack.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, do you like the Padres today?
Yeah. I do like the park upgrade here for the lefties. You have Cronenworth, Soto, Odor, Carpenter, all hitting in the top 6. Since over the last 3 seasons for left-handed hitters, the home run park factor in Yankee Stadium is 3rd highest, 25% better than average for home runs. Petco Park is 20th, 7% below average. So massive park upgrade for the left-handed bats in particular. Not to say that, you should be shying away from Tatis or Bogarts, but for the left-handed power, that's really big. And then you're getting a guy making his major league debut that seems like he's decent, but it's not like you're talking about some elite prospect here or anything like that. And you always get the added volatility of a guy making his major league debut. You have nerves. You never know how that's going to go. So very, very high upside spot for the Padres. I do just really like the park upgrade for the left-handed bats, and they are pretty cheap because Soto's coming in at 5,700, Tatis at 61, Bogarts at 52. Cronenworth's only 4,400. Every other hitter in the lineup is 3K or less. Rougned Odor batting 5th, second base and outfield eligibility at 2,700. Matt Carpenter, first base and third base at 3K. So this is a team that, even though the true stars are expensive, from a stack standpoint, you're going to be able to balance out that salary and still get to some good pitching and one-offs around them.
Let's talk about the Rangers facing your Baltimore Orioles. Grayson Rodriguez on the bump for Baltimore. John Gray for the Texas Rangers. All right, let's get into your boy here a little bit. I know you're excited about him. I've seen you talk about him often, and I think there's good reason to be. 1st round pick, 11th overall, good stuff. Pedigree's there. You gotta stop walking guys at such a high clip, though. He's got the K rate, like everything is there, but home runs and walks have been a bit of an issue here. So is this one of those spots where you potentially look at it from both sides?
Yeah, I think this game's interesting pretty much all around. Rodriguez, though, for sure, 8,300. The strikeout stuff's there, like you said. He's made 9 starts now in his big league career. He's striking out 26.2% of hitters. A little bit of an elevated walk rate, like you said, at 9%. He's giving up over 2 home runs per 9 innings, 5.28 FIP, 4.13 xFIP is better. But there are a couple interesting things here as well. One, he's already shown that when he has his good stuff, he's not going to get hit. This isn't like he's going out there every start getting strikeouts and also giving up runs. He's given up 2 earned runs or less in 5 of his 9 starts. He's given up 5 or more in 3 of his 9 starts. He gave up 4 in the other one. So you've definitely seen where he's still like, he's young, he's inexperienced. He's not necessarily getting by when he doesn't have it all put together. But when he has this stuff, like he's getting outs, he's not getting hit hard consistently. It's a few games messing up the numbers. But the other really interesting thing is that he got hit hard 2 starts ago against the Angels. Went to that game. It was Ohtani versus Rodriguez, expected a pitching duel. It was like a 9-5 final. Got hit hard that game. Said after the game, or at some point after the game, that he thought he was tipping pitches. He made some adjustments. The article's in the Baltimore Sun. I'm not subscribed, so I couldn't read the full article, but saw some of the quotes where he was just talking about
put it in airplane mode.
What?
Put your phone in airplane mode and you can read it.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's some of them have worked around that now, but yeah, you can flip in the airplane mode and just hit back.
Okay, yeah, I had no idea that worked, but but yeah, so he was the quotes were just talking about like different glove placement. I think kind of changing the way he's standing on the mound. The point being, then he's made 1 start since then. He was solid against Toronto, gave up 2 runs. So who knows if that was the entirety of the issue or if it was just a small part, but there is certainly some chance that you just see a better Grayson Rodriguez going forward if he truly was tipping pitches and if teams were aware of that.
Right. No, you're for sure. But then, on the other side of that, before we get to Gray and Baltimore bets, on the other side, if that's not the case and he still has that getting blown up potential, there have been games like 8 runs, 2 homers. He's allowed multiple homers in 3 or 4 games. He has been kind of blown up in a handful of games here. And like you said, those other games, he's really sharp. And even a couple of them, 1 or 2 of them, you probably would have needed him. So I think you can look at this one from both sides for sure.
Yeah. And in particular, lefties have been a problem. 248 expected ISO to lefties, 394 expected WOBA. It's a little bit surprising he's had those struggles because he does have a really good changeup, which is a pitch that typically neutralizes opposite-handed hitters. But he has had those issues so far. And you're looking in particular at Corey Seager and Nathaniel Lowe now in Camden Yards, where we know that they've turned this into a park where it's difficult for right-handed power, but they haven't done anything to right field, and left-handed power still plays up here. Over the last 3 years, the 7th best home run park factor for left-handed hitters. So Texas is a high upside spot. I was a little surprised that their implied run total was only 4. I thought it would be a little bit higher here, but I think that does speak to just how talented Rodriguez is. If this were a smaller slate and Texas were getting 1% ownership like they are now, I'd be really, really interested. As is, I'm still interested in getting to them in tournaments for the upside, but they do kind of run into the problem where like no team is really that popular and there's a lot of high upside spots.
Do you like John Gray or the Baltimore bats?
I like the Baltimore bats. Gray is a pretty tough sell here. I think if you're going to Gray, you're pretty much just ignoring everything that's happened this year. And you're just saying like, look, this guy's been a good pitcher for his whole career. He's outside of Coors. And that's okay. Like there is still talent there, but so far this season, only striking out 18.5% of hitters, 4.82 FIP, 1.25 home runs per 9. He's okay still as a pitcher, but you're going into Camden Yards against a bunch of left-handed bats. He's only struck out lefties 17% of the time this year, 207 expected ISO, 379 expected WOBA. So that isn't looking great. You have Cedric Mullins back in the lineup for Baltimore after missing yesterday's game for personal reasons. So in the top 3, it's Mullins, Rutschman, Santander, all from the left side. Then you get a right-handed bat that has power in Mountcastle. You get Frazier from the left side, who's off to the best hitting start of his career, 114 WRC plus going into yesterday's game. He's already doubled his home run output from last year so far this year. You have Hayes, who is top 15 in hard hit percentage in baseball. Gunnar Henderson from the left side. I've said it a bunch recently. I think he's breaking out sooner rather than later. Ryan O'Hearn hitting 8th, cheap left-handed power bat. It sets up as a pretty dangerous spot for a pitcher that is not missing a lot of left-handed bats in Gray. So the Orioles are another one of many teams with a 4.5 implied run total on this slate. Right now, they are projected for about 3% aggregate ownership, 3% chance of being the top stack. So I do like them. It's just, they don't really separate from a bunch of other teams.
All right, let's talk about St. Louis and Cleveland here. Liberatore and Shane Bieber on the mound. It's really weird with Bieber this year because it's not like he's been bad in the conventional sense, but you're just simply not getting the same strikeouts. You're not like, you look at the whiff rate on all of his pitches, is down. He's striking out 17.8% of batters. Again, though, it's not like he's given up less than a home run per 9. He hasn't been bad. He's not getting carved up every game, but the strikeouts haven't. Do you expect that to come back? His velocity is down. I think it was like 2 miles per hour from where it was a season or two ago. There's just nothing that jumps off the page at me like, whoa, that is really bad. Are you seeing anything?
I mean, the velocity is down like 2 miles per hour on his fastball off of the seasons that he had his best strikeout stuff. The big concern for me is just, Josh and I were talking about it this morning. It's really weird because Bieber's not old. He did deal with some arm injuries, so I think that could contribute to it as well. But he had the really big drop off last year where he went from like a 32% strikeout percentage down to 25. So it was like, all right, that's not what he was, but it's still good. And then now you've seen another similar drop off where he's down to about a 17.5, 18% strikeout percentage. You probably see it come up at least a little bit going forward, but that fastball velocity is down to around 91 miles an hour. He used to sit at 93, never the hardest thrower, but it has dropped off a bit. So I think that is reason for concern. On this slate, I think he's fine as a low-owned tournament play, just, a way to offset some ownership, but I'm not going out of my way to get to him because there are just so many good strikeout pitchers in that price range and even a little bit cheaper where I don't have to question, are they going to start striking out more hitters or not? Because they're already doing it. It's not like it's an elite matchup against the Cardinals or anything. So he's there, he's 5-6% owned. If you're going to like a full Met stack or something, then maybe Bieber comes into play in a lineup like that to offset ownership. But I don't think I'll be getting to him very often outside of stacks where I need to save ownership.
Gotcha. What about Liberatore? By the way, 7.5 run total in this game, so not exactly expected to be one of the higher scoring games on the slate.
Yeah, 3.7 to 3.8 implied run total on both sides. Liberatore, I think, is tough to get to. He's a quality pitching prospect. He's got good stuff, but not a great strikeout matchup. Steven Kwan is close to impossible to strike out. Ramirez is very tough to strike out. Both of those guys hitting towards the top of the order, of course. So this game is, I think, all in all, one of, if not the most unappealing game on the slate, just because you have two good enough pitchers, but they're priced high enough and or have difficult enough strikeout matchups that I don't really see getting to them on this slate. But I'm not looking to get to Cleveland or St. Louis bats really either.
Okay. So this is just one of those games that with 12 on the slate, we don't need the fours.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, good. Let's keep moving then, because there's a lot to get to and some really good, interesting spots that we're going to dive into. Taijuan Walker, Jared Schuster. I mean, Taijuan Walker, man, it's been a tough go as a Phillies fan watching this guy take the mound each day. I know last time out he was fine, but overall it's been a pretty underwhelming season for him. And then on the other side, I guess looking at this game, pulling up the top pitchers tool, we have Taijuan Walker getting, how much ownership do we have Walker at? That's okay. I think
should be like none.
Nothing. Yeah. Less than 1%. How much do we have going to Schuster?
Should also be none.
We have 5% right now on him.
That seems 5% too high.
Negative leverage. I mean, he's cheap, but Taijuan Walker is just way too expensive at that price point against Atlanta. That's a spot where I just don't really see much need to get to it. Do you have any interest in either side?
In either pitcher, no.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, like if you went to one, like you said, Schuster's getting a little bit of ownership just because he is only 6,100, but I just don't think that's going to be necessary on this slate. And as far as cheap pitchers go, Alex Wood at the very least, I think looks a little bit better. So probably not much Schuster. Definitely not going to be getting the Walker. He projects as one of the worst pitchers on the slate, and he's not even that cheap. So much more interested in the bats than the pitching.
Specifically Atlanta or both sides?
Specifically Atlanta, but also the Philly side. Philly is another 4.5 implied run total team that's just sitting there with a 3 to 6% chance of being the top stack. They do look to be going a little bit under owned, but they are pretty expensive as well. 3% aggregate ownership, 5.5% chance of being the top stack, only 2% chance of being the top value. In terms of stack score, they're coming in 7th. So that's, factoring in the value component. So they do look to be going a little bit under owned, which is nice. Obviously, the top of this order in particular is very high upside with Turner, Harper, Castellanos, and Schwarber 2 through 5. Schuster's a lefty, but you're never shying away from Harper and Schwarber just because he's left-handed. So the Phillies, look to be going a little bit under owned. The Braves have the second highest implied run total on the slate. They are 6th in stack score, also pretty expensive, going a little bit over owned probably. 8.5% aggregate ownership, 7% chance of being the top stack. In terms of individual hitters for Atlantic, because this is a team that can be pretty misleading when you look at aggregate ownership. And that is sort of the case here. Ronald Acuna is pulling 15% ownership because he's always one of the best plays on the slate. Marcell Ozuna, after a big game yesterday, still only 2,700, pulling 11%. Matt Olson's the next highest owned guy at 8%. So as a full stack, I think Atlanta's ownership is more in line with their chances of success than the top stack tool indicates, because Acuna is pulling it up a bit. But both offenses here look pretty appealing.
You guys saw we got the top stack tool on the screen, so you can follow along with us today if you're not a premium sub. Get an idea of what we're looking at here. There's still a couple games we're going to get to where the top stack percentage and stack score comes up quite a bit. But my God, dude, it's really, really flat outside of maybe 2 or 3 teams.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of Ozuna, did you see the home run call yesterday on his
No.
home run? So a year or 2 or 3 ago, whatever, Ozuna got arrested for, I don't know if it was DUI or what, but in the video, he says to the cop, like, I'm Ozuna from the Braves. And so he homered yesterday, and the Cobb County cop that is, in the dugout for security, goes over and, high fives him. And the Braves broadcaster is like, oh, even the Cobb County police officers are congratulating him.
That's awesome. Who was the Cardinals player that died in the car accident?
Cardinals player?
Maybe wasn't it the Cardinals?
Nick Aidenhart was with the Angels.
No, he was Dominican, I thought.
Yordano Ventura was on the Royals.
Not Ventura. I remember Yordano Ventura. That's a sad one.
Yeah. Darryl Kyle was on the Cardinals, but that was a heart attack.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't remember a Cards pitcher.
I thought it was. Maybe not. Maybe not. I'll have to pull it up.
Jose Fernandez was on the Marlins, and he was a boating accident.
No, that was a boating accident. They were all doing coke, I think.
Yeah.
Oscar Tavares.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
I'd actually forgotten about that.
Yep. He was Dominican. Yeah. Oscar Tavares, 22 years. That was a sad one.
Yeah.
Because he had a future ahead.
Yeah. He had just come up to the majors too.
He was a rookie. Yep. Yeah. Oscar Tavares is who I was thinking.
Yeah.
Of.
Yeah. He's an outfielder. So I was thinking pitchers, but
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't say he was a pitcher. Did I? I
don't know. I don't know if you said it or not. It was just in my head.
Yeah. That was crazy. There were a bunch of those, like a string of those actually over the course of a few years for baseball players.
Yes. Yeah. Ventura and Tavares weren't separated by that much. Fernandez was in that time period.
I remember where I was when I got the Fernandez news, because that guy was absolutely dominant.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember where I was, but I definitely remember it actually kind of affecting me, where it was like, shit.
I just know I was at the beach, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, and Skaggs wasn't an accident, but he was within that 5-year window too.
Oh, that's another one. Yeah, I mean, it was an accident.
Well, yeah, it was an accident. It wasn't
but not a car accident.
It was not a car or boat accident.
Right. Anything else for Philly and Atlanta? Top batters here before we move on.
I mean, I think that part's pretty self-explanatory. Acuna, Olson, Riley, Turner, Harper, Castellanos, Schwarber. It's just 2 very high-end offenses.
Washington, Kansas City. All right, 2 fun teams. Patrick Corbin, Jordan Lyles. We'll have to speed some of these up because we only have an hour to do a 12-game show, and we got a live before lock on the other side of this, which will be fine. We're professionals here. But, I mean, hey, Patrick Corbin at least isn't allowing 8 runs per game this year, Adam, but he still is not generating strikeouts. He doesn't walk guys. I mean, that's good, I guess. But ultimately, what should you expect from a guy like this tonight?
I forgot about Roy Halladay. That's another one.
Oh yeah, that was drugs too,
No,
and
that
a
was
plane crash.
was it drugs? I knew it was a plane crash.
Yeah, apparently he had a cocktail of
Oh,
drugs in his
I think I do
system.
remember hearing that.
He flew a plane, flying a plane over the water.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
crashed into the water.
yeah.
Corey Lytle, back like I was probably a junior or senior in high school, crashed his plane and died too. Um, but yeah, so the Kansas City Washington game is really interesting because you have two of the highest implied run totals on the slate, both of these teams between 4.7 and 4.8, but also both of these teams suck. They're just facing bad pitchers. Pitchers Park in KC, but it's relatively warm. So I get why these teams are pulling some ownership, just because you're facing Patrick Corbin and you're facing Jordan Lyles and you're pretty cheap. 3% chance to be in the top stack for KC, 7.5% aggregate ownership, 6.5% chance to be in the top value stack. Washington coming in second in stack score with a 17.5% chance of being the top value stack, 5% chance of being the top stack, 9% aggregate ownership. So I get it. Jordan Lyles, 6.08 FIP this year. Patrick Corbin, 4.45, but only striking out 13.8% of hitters. 1.25 home runs per 9 for Corbin. Lyles allowing 2.2. I completely understand why the ownership's coming in here. It makes sense. It makes a lot more sense than some of these recent Nats and Tigers games where like you were getting cheap, bad pitchers, but then the offenses weren't popular either. So it does make sense here, but it kind of comes back to like, do I really want to be playing relatively popular KC or Washington bats on a 12-game slate where pricing, cheap hitters aren't really that difficult to come by? We've already talked about some of these appealing stacks where, you have enough cheap hitters in the lineup that can offset the high end guys, even the Braves who we just talked about. You have 3 expensive guys at the top. You have 4 guys in the lineup that are sub 4K, including the 5 and 6 hitters. So I'm not really sure that the Nats or Royals are that useful on this slate, but they do still project well just because of the high implied run totals also. So I don't love the ownership coming in, but I do think that it's 2 of the better hitting spots when you're going up against Lyles and Corbin.
Yeah, for sure. You don't love the ownership on hitting, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one other thing I don't love, and it's not the end of the world. Like if you're stacking KC, by all means, go to Pasquantino, go to MJ Melendez. You don't have Nick Prado in the lineup, but KC is a team that I like going to pretty often because they do have a lot of good hitting prospects. The top of their order really isn't bad, but 3 of those guys, Prado, who's not in the lineup, Pasquantino, Melendez, all left-handed. That kind of leaves you with Salvador Perez and Bobby Witt, the only 2 right-handed guys in this order that can actually hit. You do have a cheap Matt Duffy leading off, not a good hitter. He's just really cheap and going to save you some money. But that is one, minor concern with KC. That being said, Corbin isn't. It's not like he's lights out against lefties and gets hit hard by righties anymore. He's just not very good against anybody. So it's not the end of the world, but would certainly prefer if they had more actual good right-handed hitters.
All right, let's keep going here. Talk a little bit about the San Francisco Giants, Milwaukee Brewers. Man, Alex Wood's been essentially unhittable against same-handed bats this year. Pretty crazy. Now, that isn't to say that it's I mean, they got what, 3 lefties expected in the lineup today for Milwaukee, one of them being Yelich.
Yeah, the lineup's out. We have
it's officially out. Okay.
We have Yelich as the lone lefty.
The only lefty. Okay. That isn't to say that, I mean, he has 386 WOBA versus righties, 345 expected WOBA, 222 ISO against righties, 240 X ISO against righties. So, I mean, it really is night and day for Alex Wood, but also 23% strikeout guy. Is there any meat on the bone here for us to get to somebody like Alex Wood today?
Yeah, I think that if you need to pay down for pitching, I think he's the preferred option at 6,300. He's made 5 starts this year, 6 total appearances, 23.5% strikeout percentage is fine, pretty solid for a $6,200 pitcher. And he's always been, a good enough real life pitcher. 4.65 FIP, 4.61 XFIP so far this year. I still prefer getting to the 9K range, 9 to 10K range if I can. But if you're paying down, like I would, especially without a big ownership difference, like Alex Wood's getting 8% ownership, Jared Schuster's getting 5. I would much rather be getting to Alex Wood. There's nobody ahead of him that in top 2 pitcher percentage, nobody below $7,500 has a higher top 2 pitcher percentage than Alex Wood on this slate. When you're comparing him to guys in that price range, you're talking, Jordan Lyles, Jared Schuster, James Caprillion, Brandon Pfaadt, Patrick Corbin, paying all the way down for Randy Vasquez. I think Wood is pretty clearly the most talented pitcher in that range. And you do have some strikeouts in the Brewers lineup as well.
Really curious to see where you land on a guy like Peralta, because on one hand, you've got a Giants team that has the third highest strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. They also have the third highest ISO against right-handed pitching this season. Peralta, 24% strikeout rate. It is down from where it used to be, no question. But the ownership on him today against the team that can and has hit righties, 28.6% we've got him at in the top pitchers tool, minus 13% leverage score with only a top 2 pitcher probability. Where do you land on a guy like Peralta today?
Yeah, he's a tricky one. So on the one hand, 8,800 is a very favorable price tag for him talent-wise. I don't fault anyone for getting there, but I do think he's going very over-owned relative to other pitchers around him that are similar. You look at the top 2 pitchers tool, Kevin Gausman's just kind of doing his own thing. He's the Mets of pitching today. But Freddie Peralta, 15% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on DraftKings. That is second highest on the slate, pulling 29% ownership. Cool. Chris Sale, 14.5%. So basically the same, pulling 16% ownership. So like half the ownership. Mitch Keller is $1,300 more, but 14% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, less than half the ownership. Hunter Brown also more expensive, so not exactly apples to apples, but half the ownership. And the reason that I'm still mentioning Keller and Brown, even though they're more expensive, is that, with baseball, you can just find cheap hitters pretty easily. It's not, it's not the same as basketball where you're saying like, oh yeah, well, this guy that's $9,000 is better than this guy that's $6,000. It's, typically a little bit easier to make up that gap in baseball if you want to. George Kirby, $500 more, 23% ownership compared to 29. Detmers is getting less ownership. Luzardo is getting no ownership, and all of these guys are like in the same top 2 pitcher percentage. So I understand why Peralta is getting the ownership. The strikeout stuff's good, although it is down a bit this year, only striking out 24% so far. But he just seems like he's going a little bit over-owned. And to your point, the Giants are not a bad offense. They don't necessarily have the most name value in their lineup, but they do have quality hitters here. They are getting a nice park upgrade going into Miller Park. So I think Peralta's fine. If the ownership stays where it is, I would expect that I'm just giving up some of that Peralta to get to more of these guys that are in, the mid-teens ownership range.
Excuse me. Yeah. And to your point, just about like cheaper batter or cheaper hitters, you're right. You could find a guy that's not, maybe not usually in the lineup, that's batting 6th or 7th or something, and he's close to the min, or like there's just always opportunities to get cheaper guys. Maybe they don't see as many expected plate appearances the guy at the top of the lineup, but you're right. It's not like playing a minimum salary guy in basketball that's playing 10 minutes at most.
Right. And Fanatic asked about FanDuel, which is a good question because pitching, obviously, only rostering one pitcher, it makes things different. So it's a little bit different on FanDuel with Peralta, but it's still kind of the same. So he's getting 11% ownership, which obviously is a lot lower than the nearly 30 he's getting on DraftKings. But he's getting 11% ownership at 10K with a 6% chance of being the top scoring pitcher. Chris Sale is $100 more, 7% to be the top scoring pitcher, getting half the ownership. George Kirby is $600 more, same chances of being the top scoring pitcher, getting half the ownership. Hunter Brown is $300 more, same chances of being the top scoring pitcher, getting half the ownership. So you get the same sort of thing where, Peralta's raw ownership is much more appealing on FanDuel than DraftKings, but you're still getting situations where it's like, okay, he's the same as all of these other pitchers, basically, and just the most popular of the group.
Wait till I get to our top hitters tool and talk to you about the ownership, individual ownership on this Mets team today. Just ridiculous. Absolutely stupid. We'll get there. But I'll give you a hint. I think like the top 8 owned hitters on the slate are Mets.
Yeah, but they're not that popular.
No, I know, but it's still crazy to see some. No, they're not popular to the point where you're avoiding them as a result. Right. But it's a 12-game slate.
Right. Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, it's what happens when you have a team with a 7-run implied run total, and everybody else is like the next highest is 5.5, and most of the slate is 4.5 or less.
God, you're right. Some of these players are. Oh, we had a couple of these guys doubled because of the MPE. So it's not not top 7, but it's like the top 5 players are owned. Anything else for San Francisco or Milwaukee you want to dive into before we get to the Blue Jays and Twins?
If you were thinking of going to Milwaukee, I do think that it's a decent stack to get to. The problems are that Darren Ruff is leading off. So he's 2,200. He's going to project as a pretty good value. But as soon as you get into the Giants bullpen, he's coming out of the game. Same is likely for Mike Brosseau, who's hitting 7th at 2,300. So as a full stack, that does make things a little bit more difficult. Individually, I do really like William Contreras as a $3,700 catcher and Willy Adames as a $3,900 shortstop. Those guys both look really good. If you wanted to add like Brian Anderson into that at 3,200, that's a pretty nice high upside value stack against Wood. As far as the Giants go, I'm not going out of my way to get to them against Peralta, but I do think it's interesting that they are really cheap. They are getting a nice park upgrade. Now, I realize they have an implied run total, basically a full run below the Nats and the Royals, but it is interesting to me that you can get a team that actually has good hitters at 1.5% ownership compared to the Royals or Nats at like 6 to 8 times the ownership. Like from a talent standpoint, if you needed to pay down for a cheap stack, the Giants actually seem pretty interesting.
Okay. I don't know if you guys are in our chalkboard. I know a lot of you guys are already. It's free, and you know, it's an app, right, where you can sync your sports books up, and all the box scores are built into it. Greg and I throw our betting picks in there every day, and everybody else is, you know, all 2,200 people. We just started this up like 2 months ago. Are in there hanging out, sweating bets for every sport every day. If you're in there, you know that BetPro and OddsShopper and the tools have absolutely been crushing. If you haven't checked BetPro out yet, click the link in the description. The first month is half off. When I tell you that it'll pay for, I don't usually say this stuff with confidence with things, but I do with BetPro, that it'll pay for itself. I say that with all sincerity. It will absolutely pay for itself. It's just been crushing for everybody. Sick Mosh in Chalkboard just, I think yesterday, said followed Greg and Laffy, and then Eitan hit his 1,000 parlay this month, and the tools just destroyed today. Hit over 1,000 just today. Literally, the tools pay for themselves. And then Hutchboy, who's like one of the preeminent members in our chalkboard, just been an awesome, awesome guy to have in there. Stacking units like it's my job. Up 2K this week. Too many singles to send all the screenshots, but the summary tells the story. Power to the tools. Man, what else do you need to know, man? The strikeout props on BetPro have been absolutely dominant. So if you're in a state where you could bet and you know, what you want to do is have money on more than one book, but even if you don't, you can filter by whatever book you have. We're giving you all of the best bets for it every single day, NBA and MLB. But the MLB strikeout props have just been absolutely torching. It's just absolutely crushing lately. And it's been fun in Chalkboard because when you're winning, things are more fun and money is more fun.
Yeah, so, I remember that. That's how I remember it.
Bro, you need to start betting more. I'm telling you, man, it's been on fire. It really, and look, does a run like this last forever? No, you're going to go through droughts. You're going to go through cold spells. But when you build it up like this and you have these type of weeks that we've been having recently, particularly since the start of the baseball season, it's so much easier to endure the rough stretches, which anybody runs into. So if you guys want to get in on it, BetPro, link in the description, half off the first month. It'll pay for itself. But also join our chalkboard. When you do, you'll see it. You can click the link when you sign up on Chalkboard or on BetPro. Come and join us, hang out, say hi. It's an awesome time, and everyone's using the tools. And when everyone's winning, life is a lot more fun. And if we start losing for a couple days here or there, well, we'll commiserate together and, you know, we'll have each other. All right, let's keep moving here. Who do we got next? Toronto, I think I said. Toronto, Kevin Gossman, Louis Varland. Yo, Kevin Gossman, that strikeout stuff is filthy, man. He was always a guy that you and I have been doing MLB shows for years. I haven't been on MLB the past couple of years, but when we were doing them years ago, I remember we're just like, hey, this guy has to figure it out. And then he didn't. And now he did. And he has a 32% strikeout rate. I mean, the last few years, he's just been really, really solid as a K rate guy.
Yeah, he is what led into Josh and I going off the rails with all the pitching prospects the Orioles have ruined over the years, or that got so much better after they left. You know, back when he was on the Orioles, you could only roster him if you had a specific catcher. Now, last I heard, that catcher is in the Blue Jays front office. So not too surprising here. But yeah, Gossman's been great. 32% strikeout percentage so far this year. Only a 4% walk percentage. 2.47 FIP, 2.7 xFIP. Doesn't have any sort of drastic splits whatsoever. He's striking lefties out this year 31% of the time. Striking righties out 32.5%. 265 expected WOBA to righties, 297 to lefties. You have some strikeouts in this Twins lineup. I said it a minute ago, but Gossman is essentially the Mets version of pitchers today, where he's the top projected guy by 3 to 4 points. The price tag is still reasonable at 10-3. We've seen DraftKings recently kind of pricing up the best pitchers on slates pretty aggressively, but that wasn't the case here with Gausman. Fully warranted 10-3 price tag, 3.4 implied run total for the Twins. Gausman looks fantastic.
Mike, the BetPro link's not in the description. Can you pull the BetPro link for this show, please? It's not on you, but can you pull this for me? We have people asking in chat where the BetPro link is, and it's not in there. Can you got it for this show though, right? This specific one. All right, let me know when you. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you. All right. God damn it. What about the other side of this one with Varland?
Just to follow up on the dumb shit Sean V's saying in chat. The Twins' active roster against right-handed pitching since the start of last year has a 100 WRC plus and a 25% strikeout percentage. Wouldn't shy away from Gausman. Like, can he pitch poorly? Sure, it happens, but good spot for Gausman. As far as the other side goes, strikeouts have been there for Garland, 26% strikeout percentage this year, but that's been about it. He's gotten hit pretty hard. He's had some pretty major issues with right-handed power, 266 expected ISO to righties compared to only 134 to lefties. Changeup has been really good against lefties, but you're getting a right-handed heavy Toronto lineup, a ton of good right-handed hitters: Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, Chapman, Merrifield, 5 of the top 6 in this order. You have Alejandro Kirk catching as well at 3,100. So it is a high upside spot for Toronto and a scary spot for Varland. I don't anticipate getting too much Varland because you're not even getting a discount on his salary. He's only $8,500. He's pulling 1% ownership. So, kind of like Musgrove, if you're playing the largest field tournaments and a bunch of lineups and he lands in them once in a while, whatever, but definitely not somebody I would be looking to get to. And I wouldn't be upset if I don't get any. The only thing working against Toronto here, though, is that they are outside of the Rogers Center. So, they are in Minnesota, and that's a pretty big downgrade for right-handed power. Over the last 3 seasons, home run park factor for right-handed bats specifically, Twins coming in 21st, 9% worse than league average. The Rogers Center is 9th, 9% better than league average. So you do only have a 4.1 implied run total here for the Jays. I still like the upside they give you, but would certainly like this game more if it were in Toronto. 4% chance of being the top stack, 5% ownership. So just another one of these middle of the road teams. But again, I do think that the park here works against the Blue Jays, whereas you have other parks like Yankee Stadium, like Camden Yards, that, like Atlanta, potentially, that are more favorable for the bats.
All right. 5 games to go. So I'll let you just wrap this game up if there's anything else there, and then we'll move on to Coors Field because that might take a second.
What did you say?
I said 5 games to go. If there's anything you have to wrap this game up, we're going to go to Coors Field here. So you good?
Yep.
All right. New York Mets, absolutely massive run total today. 7.1 implied run total against Seabold. I mean, this is unsurprisingly the highest owned stack, but not just the highest owned stack. Usually when a team has a top stack score this high, their ownership is generally higher than that. That's not even the case right now. Like this just, I guess it's do you even try to get away from the Mets today?
Not at their current ownership, I don't think. Like I haven't made my lineup, so I don't know for sure, but I don't have a problem with where their ownership is when you consider how cheap they are and how likely they are to succeed. First in top stack percentage at about 21%, 21% aggregate ownership, 12.5% chance of being the top value stack. That's second. The only team that has a higher top value percentage is Washington. And obviously the Mets are a more appealing offense. In terms of stack score, they are more than double Washington, who's second. They just look really good. And this is something that Josh and I talked about this morning. It's something Neil and I have talked about a lot on the strategy show. You've seen the field get sharper in MLB. And obviously overall, that's not ideal. But what it has done is, even when you get teams like the Mets that are clearly going to be the most popular team, you're not necessarily getting problematic amounts of ownership. A couple of years ago in a spot like this, you'd probably be getting 30 to 40% ownership in large field tournaments on a team like the Mets because everybody was good enough, or, a large percentage of the field was good enough to know to use quality projections, but they weren't good enough to know how to balance ownership and what to do with it. And so you would just get really easy decisions where it's like, all right, I'm just not going to play the Mets. I'm going to go to, the second, third best teams. And as a result, you'd be getting more ownership on the Mets, but also less ownership on teams like Atlanta, Philly, Houston, San Diego, whoever it may be. players have gotten better. And so now you're just getting that like correct 20% ownership on the Mets. But as a result, you're also getting correct ownership on these other teams. So it turns into, yes, you're still getting lower raw ownership on the other offenses, but it's not as big an advantage to go to them and fade the Mets because they are succeeding. Like their ownership is in line with how likely they are to succeed. So you're going from, you're going from a team that's 20% to succeed to a team that's 5%, and you're not getting you're not getting an ownership discount relative to their chances of success. So my approach is generally going to be to get to the Mets and then just be different, in other spots in my lineup, whether that is using guys, pivoting to guys other than Freddie Peralta, like we already talked about. That's one way to do it. Maybe somebody like Musgrove fits into a specific Mets lineup because he's low owned. You go to, maybe the Rangers or the Orioles at low ownership as a secondary stack. There's a lot of ways you can do it, but the Mets just look so good and the ownership really is coming in where it should be. They're not coming in overowned.
All right. Do you have any interest in Scherzer?
I think he's one of the pitchers that makes some sense in like a Met stack because he's not getting any ownership, but I don't really anticipate getting to him. 9,200 is a solid price for what Max Scherzer has been for years, but he has struggled this year. You do have added concerns because he did get suspended for sticky stuff. He claimed that it was bullshit, but who knows? And, if we're going to see a drop off from him going forward, that is obviously, there's a non-zero chance that you're going to see that. The game is in Coors, so obviously he's not going to project that well. You still have a 4.7 implied run total for this terrible Rockies team. So as a low owned guy where it's like, yeah, he's still talented, you could get to Scherzer, but it's not anything I'm looking to really get to.
All right. Trey, the link is in the description for BetPro now. I know you asked about that. It's right down there. Yeah, BetPro right there. Okay. So BetPro, Trey, down there in the description. Sorry about that, dude. All right. Thanks, Mike. So do you like Rocky bats today? Or is this, yeah, you are getting to some Colorado bats?
Yeah, I think they're a good tournament stack. That is one thing that's really interesting just about that part of the matchup. Max Scherzer, $9,200 Max Scherzer is not getting any ownership, but the Rockies and Coors against him also aren't getting any ownership. Pretty good chance one of those two sides is going to put up a big enough game that you're happy you played them. They are, Scherzer is expensive enough that, there is some middle ground there where, he goes 6 innings, 3 runs, 5 strikeouts, and neither side is very good. But it's just interesting to me that neither side here is getting ownership. And yes, the Rockies are a bad offense. Everybody's aware of that, but you have teams like the Nats and the Royals as two of the most popular teams on the slate. Those sure as hell aren't good offenses. You still have this team in Coors where a 4.7 implied run total is on par with essentially every team on the slate other than the Mets, Astros, and Braves. So I'm just a little confused why the Rockies aren't pulling at least a little bit more ownership, and they're not exactly expensive. The top 5 hitters on DraftKings are at least 4,100. Bryant and Diaz are 5K or more. The bottom 4 hitters are all cheap. Now, granted, they're not very good, but they are cheap. You have Nolan Jones in there, third base outfield at 3,300. He, formerly of the Cleveland organization, at the very least has some power, has swing and miss in his game as well. But it's not a super expensive team, and I don't think they're getting enough ownership compared to some other teams with similar chances of success.
All right. Where are we at next? By the way, how many thumbs up we got? 92. All right. Not bad for almost 500 people in here. That's not terrible, guys. I mean, there are some people who I'm just going to assume you forgot. I don't think it's intentional. I don't take it personally, but I do think there are 8 people out there who could take a single second, tap that thumbs up, and get us on our way. Yeah, we're about to hit 100 right here. Just do us that one side. Appreciate you. There we go. North of 100. All right. Thank you, guys. Where are we at next? And of course, Live Before Lock coming up after this. Is it EMac and Josh?
Yeah, I think so.
EMac and Josh, Mike? Yeah. All right, good. Yeah, drink the chamomile and he'll be in business. Let's go to, we love you, EMac. Let's go to Miami and LA. Luzardo and Detmers. Battle of the Southpaws today. 8-run implied total. These guys have some stuff. Detmer, it's crazy with Detmers, man. When I looked at him, I was trying to see what his pitches per plate appearance were. I could have sworn he was going to be like towards the bottom as far as, or top, depending on how you look at it. He actually isn't. He just hasn't really gone deep into games.
Yeah, the strikeout stuff's been there though.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, he's still only 23. He's a top prospect. He took a little bit of time to get acclimated to the majors. 25 starts last year, 129 innings pitched, only struck out 22.6% of hitters, but he projected to be much better than that this year. And so far he has. Rest of season projections, both the BAT and ATC have him between 25 and 26% K rates. So far this year, just shy of 30% with a 3.42 FIP. At 7,700, I'm very interested in him. Even with, like you said, some concerns about how deep in the games he's going to go. At 7,700, that strikeout stuff really stands out. It's not a great strikeout matchup against Miami. Their active roster since the start of last year, only about 19 to 20% against left-handed pitching. But 3.7 implied run total, $7,700 price tag, and not a lot of ownership. 16% ownership. So he's getting less than George Kirby, who's $1,600 more. He's getting half, basically, of Freddie Peralta, who's $1,100 more. He's getting less than half of Gossman, who's a lot more. So I do really like getting to Detmers here, even though it's not the best strikeout matchup and it is a hitter-friendly park.
Any interest in Luzardo?
A little bit. He's another Mets stack guy, I think, where it's a dangerous matchup against the Angels. They do have a lot of right-handed power in this lineup. Since the start of last season against left-handed pitching, they have a 126 WRC plus. You have Trout and Ohtani, obviously two of the best hitters in baseball. Then you have Ward, Renfroe, Drury. Those guys all can do damage. So, and it's a negative park shift for Luzardo, but he does still have good strikeout stuff. And he's still, a good pitcher. 26% K rate this year, 3.9 FIP. 4% ownership, about an 11% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So I think there's specific lineup builds where he fits in, but I wouldn't expect to have a lot of him overall. 11% chance of being a top 2 pitcher compared to, a similarly priced Freddie Peralta with a 15% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, but getting 1/7 of the ownership. If you compare him to George Kirby, who's $200 less, he's getting about 1/4 of the ownership, even though they have basically the same top 2 pitcher percentages. So I think he's a high upside way to save ownership if you need to, but he's also not that likely to succeed in the spot.
Bats on either side. I mean, this doesn't seem like the best hitting spot.
Yeah, I don't think it's a great hitting spot. If I go to the bats here, I would expect that it is the Angels. 3% ownership, 2.5% chance of being the top stack. You do have obviously good power hitters in that lineup in a favorable hitter's park, but I think it's more likely that I don't get to them.
Houston and Oakland. We're actually not doing as bad for time as I thought we would, to be completely honest. I thought
we never are until you go into the bit about how we're not doing bad on time and then bring up some TV show.
Whoa. Hold on a second. It was you that kept naming athletes that have since left us after I tried to move forward. That's
fair.
Not me. But yes, usually that's the case. All right. Houston and Oakland. Dive into this one a little bit. 8.5 run total for tonight. Hunter Brown, James Caprillion on the other side. Houston just a massive favorite. I mean, simply no surprise at this point. Oakland is a god-awful baseball team. Do you want to hit this from both sides, whether it's pitching, Hunter Brown getting 13.7 top 2 percentage in the top pitchers tool? That's not bad at all. That's top 5 today. Ownership, he's up around top 5 in ownership as well. And as far as top stacks go, the second highest stack behind the New York Mets, both in top stack percentage, not ownership, actually just top percentage is Houston Astros.
Yeah, I think this one's pretty easy. You just pay attention to the Houston side of it. Hunter Brown's 9,900. So, he's more expensive than some other good strikeout pitchers, but he does have the best matchup you can get. 3.1 implied run total for the A's. This team is terrible. The park is good for pitching. Hunter Brown is good, about a 26% K percentage this year, 3.08 FIP. One of the best pitching prospects in Houston's organization. So I do like getting to him. I am a little surprised. He's one of the guys that I think is going under-owned compared to Peralta. He's 1,100 more, but again, it's just not that hard to find the salary in MLB, and he's getting half the ownership. So I think Brown looks really good. I think the Astros look good. The only thing I don't like about Houston offensively is that they are playing in Oakland. So you have one of the worst parks for offense in terms of run scoring, in terms of home runs. It's just so hard to put up offensive numbers there because you have a massive outfield. It's typically not particularly warm. It's 60 degrees today. And then you also have the wide-ranging foul territory. So a lot of at-bats that would typically be prolonged in every other park end up being outs. All of that, though, is working against them, but you still have a matchup against one of the worst starting pitchers in baseball in Caprillion. You still have a very high upside lineup. It hasn't been released yet, but assuming you have Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, Tucker, Pena, those guys are all really good. Abreu hasn't been hitting for power this year, but he's really cheap. So, you can use him to sort of balance out some of those higher priced guys. So the Astros do look good as a stack despite the ballpark. They're third in stack score. They are second in top stack percentage, just shy of 9%. And they're not getting a ton of ownership since they are relatively expensive.
All right. Are you loading up on Oakland bats today?
Yeah, always.
Yeah, it's really tough to get there. Boston and Arizona, though. Chris Sale, Brandon Pfaadt. What a weird name. It's such a weird name. Is it not? It just looks odd.
I mean, it's extremely weird the way you pronounce it.
Pfaadt.
Yeah, Fod. Yeah.
Pfaadt.
If you ignore the P and the T, it sounds less weird.
Yeah. Which is tough to do.
Can't imagine how many times he got called Brandon Fat growing up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got the double A in there, so you got to hit the A.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. You like either of these guys tonight?
I like Sale a lot. I'm surprised the Diamondbacks have a 4.2 implied run total. I wish we had more time to really talk about Sale, but talked about it this morning. I wrote about it in depth in the MLB article today. So you can click on that if you want more. But long story short, I think Sale's back. His numbers this year have been very good. 29% strikeout percentage, 4.01 FIP, a little bit elevated. But I think that he's actually even better than those numbers suggest. He has two of the really like three starts he struggled in this year were both against Baltimore. There's pretty heavy speculation that Baltimore had some sort of read on him and they knew what was coming. 0 strikeouts in 5 innings his last time against them. They also lit him up late in spring training. So he's been good, even factoring in those 2 games where he was really bad. 3 home runs in the first game of the year against Baltimore. If you ignored those games, which again, like that's flawed, you can't just throw them away. But if you do buy into the theory that Baltimore had some sort of tell and they knew what was coming, he has a 32% strikeout percentage in his other 7 games. His ERA goes from 5 to 3.6. If you remove the Baltimore games, he's been really, really good. He's still only 9K. I like Chris Sale quite a bit here. I think he is one of the most obvious pivots to Freddie Peralta. 15% chance, 14.5% chance being a top 2 pitcher compared to Peralta's 15% chance and getting half the ownership. I really like getting to Sale. I don't think you can really get to Brandon Pfaadt here. He is a highly ranked pitching prospect. He has struggled through his first couple of major league starts. Not the best matchup against the Red Sox, although this is a watered down lineup. There's no Rafael Devers. You have Ramel Tapia leading off at 2K. So quality value bat there from a projection standpoint, but also not a great hitter. Rob Refsnyder's in the lineup. I can't immediately figure out who else is missing from this lineup outside of Devers, but it's not as good a normal lineup. It's not as good a lineup as the Red Sox typically have.
All right. So we got 1 game to go. I want to talk to you about Kirby. Before we do though, so you guys know when we have new reads on this show, I'm not one to bullshit you. Plus, you would know from my tone anyway. So Sleeper sponsoring the show, and I go, okay, I got a lot of fantasy leagues over on Sleeper every single year. I haven't tried the picks contests yet. Now in PA I can't, but I was like, all right, it's a read on the show. I got to check this out. And honestly, in my head, I'm going, I hope this is good so I don't have to do a read, very unenthusiastically. Adam, it's sick, dude. They set this up, the picks. So it's basically like, you know how there's juice on either side of props on like sports books?
Yeah.
And with a lot of these pick'em sites, there isn't. So you won't get a lot of props if the juice is too heavy on one side. So what they did is they just put in dynamic payouts. So there's like multipliers on the over, which is different than on the under. So like if you were to take an over, you can do double doubles, triple doubles, home runs and stuff like that, right? So you got to you play at least 2 as it would be anywhere else. They also have 100x payouts, which is insane. $100 first match deposit bonus. So if you're doing it and you're signing up and you want to check it out, the interface is sick too. I was on my phone. Up to $100. A minimum deposit's 20, but you're going to be putting 20 plus in anyway. So double your money, whether it's 20, 50 or 100. But the dynamic, because I didn't know what that meant. And I'm looking at it in the read and I go, now not only do I not know what it means, but I have less of an idea what it means than when I read it the first time. So I got to go inspect it myself. It's basically like they're attaching juice to each side of a prop. So now if you actually like the over on a strikeout prop that's at plus 150 on traditional books, you're getting a better multiplier. You're getting a better multiplier here. If you like the double-double on a player that's plus 250 somewhere and is not going to be offered anywhere else, you can hit the over on that and get a much more significant multiplier. So what they've done, because this is traditionally available in non-legal betting states, is they've taken everything from traditional sports books and found a way to somewhat attach juice to these props to now offer a wider range of props, Adam, that you wouldn't be able to offer if there was no juice on either side. It's a pretty brilliant concept.
Yeah, sounds interesting and way over my head, but interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm saying a lot of these pick'em sites, if there is heavy juice on either side, if it's shaded heavy to one side, they can't give you the prop.
Okay. Yeah, so I have no experience with pick'em sites because they all went away in Maryland.
Right. I figured, yeah, Pennsylvania too, but there's a lot of people out there that can't bet legally like you or myself. I'm really impressed with this. So, and I say that with all sincerity, guys. If you know me long enough, if you haven't checked it out yet, link in the description, link in chat. It's really cool. Up to 100x payouts, 100% deposit match bonus, up to $100. And those type of payouts, those multipliers change. I think you're going to start seeing other sites, big ones, start adopting this dynamic pricing system because it makes such a massive difference. Check it out. The link in the description. Check. Get the first match deposit bonus up to $100. Check it out. If you don't like it, whatever, but I think you're going to really like it. All right, let's wrap this one up. Do you know what George Kirby's strikeout rate is, or walk rate is this year?
2.2%.
It is so insanely low. Yeah, it's. I think he's walking. Not that we're getting into the per nine, but like less than half a batter per nine. His K rate, 2.2%. I know he's not a big K rate guy, but he faces or pitches per plate appearance is one of the best in the league. He doesn't walk guys. He pounds the strike zone. Guy goes 8 innings every single start. Man, he's a pretty interesting. He's a really interesting young pitcher.
Yeah, he really is. And you're also getting him in one of the best pitcher parks in baseball. The Pirates have certainly dropped off since the start of the year when they made that surprise run right out of the gate. So yeah, Kirby looks really good. $9,300 pitcher. He's another pitcher that is very comparable in terms of range of outcomes to Freddie Peralta. He's getting a little bit less ownership, though he is getting more ownership than guys like Sale and Hunter Brown. But yeah, Kirby looks really good.
Yeah, I like him too. Do you like the other side of this one?
Keller?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit more difficult to get to just because he is, a little more expensive. He's $200 cheaper than Kevin Gausman. I think he's a very reasonable way. Like, let's say you're going to the Mets. You can still afford to get the Kevin Gausman, but maybe, you have a popular one-off in addition to your Mets. Keller is a reasonable pivot, at 1/3 the ownership of Gausman. He's somebody that's always had good stuff. I've always thought should be good and never really put it together till this year. It appears he's scrapped his slider from previous years. He's throwing a cutter now to both sides of the plate that averages about 3 miles an hour more than the slider did. He also seems to have added a sweeper that is getting an 18% strikeout percentage against righties. So he's finally putting it together. He's finally getting a lot of strikeouts. He's pitching really well. Comes into this game with a 30.5% K percentage, 2.67 FIP. The big reason that he projects so much differently than Gausman is that Gausman's just been doing it for longer. Obviously any good projections are still going to be factoring in previous years and not just using what a pitcher's done so far this year. So that's why Gausman projects better from a median standpoint, but from a range of outcome standpoint, there's certainly a decent chance that like this is just what Mitch Keller is going forward. And 3 years from now, it's just like, Mitch Keller would be projecting the same way as Gausman does now. So there is still that upside at a fraction of the ownership.
All right, let's wrap this one up. And EMac and Josh told us we could go long, so appreciate you guys. We're wrapping it up.
Very nice of them.
Very nice of them. Yeah. Well, we don't have a choice. Any bats you want to get to in this game? It's hard to feel good about bats at all in this spot.
I have no interest in bats here.
All right. Hey, follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS, me at Lafayette_D. Shout out to Mike's pulling a 3 hours straight on this, I believe. So shout out to Mike Lawrence. Check out Sleeper. Bet Pro link is down there, half off. Come crush it with us in Chalkboard using those tools, man. And of course, all of our other tools is stochastic half off for the month. You guys got any questions? Hit me up on Twitter at Lafayette_D. Live before lock coming up next. Have a great weekend, fellas. We'll catch you back here on Monday. Peace.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Friday, May 26th edition of the Bet Pro video. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. No NBA tonight as the Celtics won last night. No game tonight. They'll play again, I assume, tomorrow, sometime this weekend. Doesn't matter. They're not playing tonight, but that series is obviously still going on for anyone interested. But we have a bunch of MLB games to find some props from tonight, and we're going to walk through the Bet Pro model to try and find the best ones. If you're not familiar with the model, it is a projections-based prop betting model. We use our DFS projections for baseball and basketball, compare them to the props being offered on a variety of different books, and you can quickly and efficiently see the best options on any specific book, the best options across the industry. There's a lot of different ways you can use it. You can sort by player and find the best props that have to do with a specific player. There's a lot of things you can do, and it should save you some time and help you make some more money. So we're going to walk through some of the best props. But before we get into it, make sure you are subscribed to the Odd Shopper YouTube channel and hit the thumbs up button below this video. That does help us out quite a bit. Now, starting on BetMGM, we have Jared Schuster getting the start tonight for the Atlanta Braves against the Philadelphia Phillies. We are projecting for 3.8 strikeouts. The line is under 4.5 at -110 on BetMGM. That gives us a 59% chance of winning and a 13% expected return. Schuster has struggled so far in his limited time in the major leagues, and the Phillies are not a particularly easy matchup. You can get the under in a variety of ways, one being that he just doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, and two being that the Phillies hit him hard, hit him early, and get him out of the game. So we like the under here, 13% expected return, as I said. On Caesars, same player, Jared Schuster, under 4.5 strikeouts at -114. So same prop, just slightly worse price. If you can bet it on BetMGM instead of Caesars, take it there. If you're only betting Caesars, still a good bet, but not as good as on BetMGM. Next, we have Alec Burleson, under 1.5 total bases tonight against Shane Bieber. Bieber is not striking out hitters at the same rate that he has previously in his career. We saw a big drop-off in his strikeout percentage last year, and we've seen another big drop-off from last year to this year. But he is still a solid pitcher at limiting production, limiting base runners, all of that. And we have Burleson projected for 1.3 total bases, which gives us a 70% chance of winning and a 7% expected return at the under 1.5 -192 line. Now, before we get into DraftKings and FanDuel, we do still have a promotional offer for the Bet Pro tool. We're no longer offering the 7-day free trial. I told you all to get on that. If you didn't, it's on you. But we do still have, or we are now offering 75% off for the first month. So it costs you $24.95, less than $1 a day to get access to the tool for a full month. We think it'll pay for itself.
So close to the weekend.
Very, very close. So you get isn't this the last round of Premiership this weekend? Don't they have a break coming up, or is this the end of the season?
It's the end of the season, but my season's over, so I don't give a shit anymore.
Oh, condolences.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, you like Chelsea too? Yeah, that's who I root for. Except my reasoning was Didier Drogba like 20 years ago. So it's not. Stochastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you from Florida. Different room in the condo now. We've got guests coming over, Josh. This is going to be a good time. The lovely walls painted behind me. My wife has painted the entire condo over the last 3 days. Very impressive. Wow. I've just been sitting here working, so not too shabby.
I know that you were in Florida.
Pardon?
I didn't know that you were in Florida.
Oh, yes. We've got a little condo down here. So
nice.
A little 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. Potentially we'll be downsizing over the next couple of years and ending up down here. So
are you saying where in Florida, or are we trying to keep that from the crazy public?
It's in the St. Pete Beach area.
Gotcha.
I don't know all the things. I'm 25 minutes from the Tampa Stadium or from Tropicana Field. So
yeah.
I mean, like, if you were easier to get to, because if you're in Tampa proper, it's a bear to get down to the stadium.
I don't know much about the area. I've spent 24 hours in Tampa, and that is the extent of my experience. And I have not been in the state of Florida in a very long time.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was going to be down here so soon and so semi-permanently, but here we are. But we've got a show today. We've got Dave Loughran and Adam Scherer took us through game by game, got everything there for you guys. We'll talk some thoughts. We'll talk where our tools are. We've got a couple promos here where you guys can get some good deals. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm stepping in for Greg Ehrenberg, who was a little under the weather today. I'm filling in for someone tomorrow morning, so you'll get me and Adam, and then I think I have my regular show on Sunday. So 3 days of me, and then I'm going to disappear for another week. So good times here. But Josh, it's been a hot minute since we've done a show together. I can't even remember the last one. I think I don't even know. At basketball, I'm guessing some point in the doldrums of winter we did an NBA show, I'm sure.
It had to be a long time at this point. I can't picture it, and it's like not triggering in my head. After doing so many for so long, it's been a while.
It has definitely been a hot minute, but we're going to get on to the fun here. We, of course, are brought to you guys by Sleeper today, so that we'll talk about them. We've got some fun stuff coming up here with BetPro. We've got the MLB lineup generator. We've got questions that we'll take in chat here. We'll talk about where we are landing. Let's talk a little pitching here first, Josh. Kind of at the top end. For me, it's I'm starting to put the percentages into the old optimizer here. I'm going to be going relatively heavy, I think, on Kevin Gausman. I believe Hunter Brown is definitely in the mix. Reed Detmers, we don't necessarily have to get there, but he is 7,700 on DK, 34 on Yahoo. Of course, I'm playing on Yahoo tonight because it is their Friday tournament. So I may be a little overextended to also have agreed to be on a show, but here we are, Josh. What other, do you like those guys? I'm assuming are you doing FanDuel or DK these days for MLB?
DK.
Okay. So the two pitcher side, a little more strategy there. But if you guys have questions for FanDuel, definitely put those in chat. Yeah. I've been playing some on FanDuel as well. Just fortunately, I didn't register for anything tonight because that could have been a really hectic show for me.
I would have taken over for you at that point. I would have ran the ship here.
Yes, but I think we'll be okay. I see there's a question for DK Tears. I have made my lineup, so I can speak to that in just a minute. But Josh, what are you liking here at some of our preeminent pitching spots?
Well, you led off with the two guys that I have the most of. That's Kevin Gausman and Hunter Brown. Now, that may change. Ownership is running right now. We still have two lineups left, but I will run everything. Once we get our update of ownership, I'll have everything ready to go. The only thing that'll tweak for me then is like Astros exposures, but that's neither here nor there. I had north of 50% of Gausman. I'm more than happy to get there. Very clearly the top option in our top pitchers tool, top option in my top pitchers tool. Hunter Brown is a close second, and I'm getting the same sort of experience for ownership for Hunter Brown. So those guys are basically one of those guys is basically in every single lineup that I have. Certainly I have some lineups with two of them. After that, it starts to get, I'm spreading it out a lot. Freddie Peralta, Bieber, Kirby, Sale, Grayson Rodriguez. The one thing that I find really interesting, I had a lot of Max Scherzer this morning on the strategy show. I was getting to in like the 15%-ish range. That has gone away now. I don't know if that was just through changes in the betting line or the way that the lineups or anything came out, but I don't have the same sort of stand on Scherzer now. So my guess is that Max Scherzer is going to pitch like he used to pitch, and I will regret that. But that was something that I talked about a lot on the strategy show this morning that is not holding as of right now.
Yeah, I think the thought is that he's only really going to go around 80, 85 pitches today. Now, that's Scherzer. If he is on, he's going to be challenging hitters, and he should get some strikeouts. But that could be what's tamping things down just a little bit if some of the earlier projections and such that you were looking at had him closer to 93, 95, 98 pitches. More Scherzer-like outing. I don't think we're going to see that one today.
No, but I don't need anymore, at least. I hope he doesn't, because I am getting to a staggering amount of the Colorado Rockies. So I hope that Max Scherzer is straight ass today.
All right. Well, we did get the ownership updated 1 minute ago, Josh. So
boom.
if you
ask, ye shall receive.
if you want to work that into your models here, I will take this moment to talk about DK tiers, because I know that was a question that popped up. Usually you want to look here and see where you can do stacking, ideally double stacking. Today, there weren't that many teams that had more than 2 hitters on them, so that I found very intriguing. But one of them is going to be Texas. If you go in the spots tier 2, 3, and 6, you can get the Texas hitters there. They're going against the Baltimore phenom pitcher who's struggled a little bit. So I think they're in a reasonable spot. You can get a couple Yankees. You can get a couple of Braves. For me, I think Ronald Acuna and Austin Riley in tiers 1 and 4 going against Taijuan Walker. I think that's a good spot. You can go for some synergy. If you want to pick on, I almost said Justin Bieber. If you want to pick on Shane Bieber, because I know we all want to kick Justin Bieber's ass, but you can get Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado there in tiers 2 and 4. And then the one team you can really stack is going to be the San Diego Padres. So they're in tiers 1, 2, and 4. So that kind of aligns a little bit with Texas. It overlaps a touch there on tier 2, but you can kind of get a double stack. And if you're doing tournaments, I would double stack on those two. They're going against, I'm blanking on the Vasquez for the New York Yankees. So that would be the routes I would take if you're building a handful of lineups. I built 56 lineups today. So there we are. I've got that stack in about a quarter of my that double stack is in about a 20 to 25% of my lineups.
56 was just based on whatever you registered, right? That wasn't like a conscious decision.
It was on how many I liked when I created the tiers, and that's where it stopped. So I think I'm in 72 contests. So I'll and some of them are ticket contests. So if I run a lineup in a ticket contest, I also want to make sure it's in a regular contest, because that's like a winner take all. So you can get so close and not get anything. So that's pretty frustrating. And then if you were in a different contest, you would have won it. Those really top heavy things bear out over the long term to just make sure it's in another contest. So
you know what's really frustrating? When you realize that you didn't register for the slate, which was not my problem for today. That was my yesterday problem. I signed on, didn't register. Did live before lock with Adam, had my lineups ready to go for everything that we talked through. I would have finished 3rd and 5th.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah. I saw which teams popped off yesterday. I was like, okay, well, I had those in abundance. I better load this CSV up in lineup rewind to see how it did. And the profit number was, like plus 7,000 or whatever it was for the main contest yesterday. I was like, cool. Yeah. 3rd and 5th. Threw that in the garbage yesterday.
Yeah. That's a painful one.
If it would have been first, I wouldn't have done shows today. I probably would have smashed my entire office. It was really awful.
I'm laughing with you, I think.
Yeah, it was. 3rd and 5th is about as good as I could finish without it really ruining my entire life.
Yeah.
Just because of how poor the payout structures are.
Well, it's so top heavy, and then you need to run exceptionally well. And that's a term I don't always like to use, but you have to have lady luck on your side and unicorns blowing musical farts out their ass, basically, for it to get a payoff. So
yeah, that didn't happen for me. Well, it happened quite well for me yesterday. So I assume I wasted all my run good yesterday for no reason whatsoever.
Oh. There we are. Yeah. I see somebody asking about the weather in Coors Field. Per everybody's favorite DFS weatherman, doesn't look like it's going to be too crazy. I know he's on vacation, but his backup has indicated that the rain should likely subside around game time. It does look better later in the night. I suspect worst case they'll wait it out. Coors, they do a lot of weird things with the weathers. They're like the exact opposite of the Washington Nationals. So they will play in hail, and I'm pretty sure they're going to play tonight regardless. So I wouldn't stress about that too much. I built out my Yahoo lineup there, so I've got that good. How are you? Have you started running lineups? Are you seeing where things are shifting yet?
I'm still waiting on ownership. It needs to be refreshed again, so I'm still hanging out there. I mean, I know what I had before, which was an overwhelming abundance of Coors today, whether that was jamming chalk Mets, which I was okay with because I think that they are very clearly the top option for today. And honestly, like, I don't even think they're as owned as I was expecting them to be. And then for assuming the low ownership holds for the Colorado Rockies, I'm going to have a lot of Colorado. This is a team that I think is just being underrepresented today in comparison to where some of the other teams that are pulling ownership are landing. Earlier today, it was the Royals and the Nats, who had very similar implied totals to the Rockies. Rockies were pulling nothing. Royals and Nats were pulling quite a bit of ownership. They were at like 8% aggregate at the time a piece. And they're a little cheaper, so I understood that it was easier to get there. But I didn't think that pricing was a qualification that should stop you from getting to Colorado today. It still seemed pretty easy. So if those guys were going to get all of the ownership, I was going to get to the opposite side. That's where I stood beforehand. I had it where I had 75 Mets 5-mans and 35 Colorado 5-mans. So the other 110 of my 150 lineups were 5-man stacks of Coors. What that ends up being in the next 35 minutes or whatever, we'll see if that changes. It's not going to change to the Mets. I know I'm going to have probably half of my lineups be represented by 5-man Mets stacks today. If the Rockies are now like 4 or 5% owned in the aggregate, then I might start getting a little bit more of the Angels, maybe more of the Braves or Padres. But we're going to find that out in a little bit.
Yep. I see in the chat, Ship Happen says sun is out in Denver. It's not raining anymore. So there we go. Again, feel relatively confident about this. James Perkins says not being the Rockies can't hit Scherzer. I think the other reason Josh was probably getting to more Scherzer today earlier this morning is Rockies are just terrible against right-handers no matter what. And even as his career is starting that downward slope, Scherzer's still pretty amazing. I think we're looking at like a number 2 starter. We're going to get about 80 pitches from him. That's not the Max Scherzer we're used to, but that's the Max Scherzer that's good enough to put a little bit of a cramp in Colorado stacks. Does that bother you at all, Josh, or are you just raring to go with the Rockies?
I mean, I'm not excited about it. Like, they're clearly terrible. Pretty much the entire lineup is ass straight across the board. The problem, I guess I can't even call it a problem. To see their implied total today is really startling to me. Like, if you just get a league average pitcher going for the Mets, do the Rockies have like a 5.4, 5.5 implied total today? Like, it takes all of Scherzer to get it to 4.9 or whatever, wherever it is sitting right now. I had 4.9 earlier. To get it to that point, like, that's still one of the best implied totals on today's slate. So I have to sort of just like cover up Max Scherzer's name and pretend that it doesn't exist, because it doesn't appear to matter as much as it seems like it should. In my mind, I don't want to attack, or I don't want to get the Rockies against Scherzer, but it seems like I'm probably overrating that in my head. Maybe the public is too.
Potentially. And so Coors always does funny things, because the thing we always want to remember is it doesn't really elevate home runs as much as it does doubles and potential triples because of the size of the outfield. And that's that, if an outfielder misplays the ball, they miss the cut, it's easy to miss the cutoff man because you're going at weird angles because of how big the outfield actually is. It's not the same as like a standard ballpark, obviously. So it's all those little things that can, a runner that would normally be out by 2 steps is just safe. Right. And it keeps rallies going. And that's the magic of Coors Field, not necessarily, jacking the home runs, especially since they put the humidor in there. But I think that still has the feeling of that's what a lot of gamers think. The other thing I see a lot, and you guys got to get in the chalkboard chat. It is a lot of fun. I do like to look at that. I keep asking, is that coming out on the desktop? Let me know when it's on the desktop, Josh. Same. I'm looking at bifocals in my very near future and just looking at the tiny print on the screen. I'm like, get it to me on my screen, and I need the typing keyboard. I'm actually not too bad typing on the phone, but I'd rather have a bigger screen. But it's fun in there. You get the picks from Greg and Laffy. You get a longtime gamer. Hutch Boy is in there. He's been doing DFS probably almost as long as I have, but yeah, it's a lot of fun in there. So check that out. I remember him from 3 companies ago, the old RG days. I think that's when I remember coming across him at some point. So he's been around for a hot minute.
Did you have to get the stats from like chiseled stone back in the day?
It was more carrier pigeon, so we thought that was an upgrade. And then, I mean, when the facsimile machine came out, Josh, I did think they called it the fax machine later. That was pretty helpful.
Submitted your lineup via Raven.
Pretty much semaphores, actually. You had to flex out. Good times. But speaking of good times, let's talk about the old sleeper app here. So this is a lot of fun. So I played tons of sleeper football. That's where we do our Osmo Dynasty League is on there. I'm in that with Mike and Laffy and Terry and I think there's 14 of us in there. It's a pretty big team. If I remember correctly, I think I've won 1 year and 1 or 2 years, and I've got second the other. So
I've never been defeated.
First pick overall, really never been defeated. I took Patrick Mahomes, and that's been the key to winning there. But the sleeper, good. Yeah, well, see, Mike, that's why you're the producer and I'm the beautiful face in front of the camera here, is because I won. That's what it's all about. But you guys want to check this out. Yet another site where we have an opportunity to sign up for a signing or a sign-on bonus. The link is, Mike can drop the link in the chat. The link is also in the description of the YouTube video here. And it's your pick'em sites, except they have a slightly different twist. You can get a $100 deposit match on your first deposit. They do have 100x payouts. That's the highest payouts out there essentially on the DFS market. So that's a lot of fun to try that. I haven't had a chance to sign up myself here, but they do have in-game contests. And then they get really down into the weeds with some of their stat categories. They're doing home runs, triples, triple doubles, double doubles, stolen bases, stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. They've got some dynamic payouts. So what that's doing is it's sort of factoring in the juice automatically into the wager. So they're doing it by how big the payout is. So if you're taking one that's a pretty good lock for you, the payout might only be 1.2x or 20%, as opposed to the other sites where you got to get up to that next half stat or that next full stat, and all of a sudden it may not be as favorable as you would like, or the other sites just aren't going to offer it. So this is a different twist on this. That will also help you make larger wagers or larger parlays or extended player opportunities there in your card. Again, that dynamic pricing is going to factor into it, but it is one way to say, I got 4 pretty good solid ones here, and you can all of a sudden get a 4.5x parlay. That's something you probably couldn't put together on one of the other pick'em sites. So that I think is pretty cool. The minimum deposit over there is $20, but again, put in $100 when you first sign up on that site, on any of the sites that we have. But that's the best way you can really get started. It allows you to make a few mistakes, get your sea legs, figure out what you want to do. You can go get their app in the Google Play or on the Apple Store, and then they also, of course, have their website. So check that out and have some fun with that. All right, Josh.
Astros lineup evidently just came out, so let me just double check that before. I just clicked start to run things, so I just want to see if it matters, if I could just let that keep going or not. So we've got Altuve. Nope, it's different. No, like Bregman's hitting 4th. Dubon in the lineup. I had Pena before, so well, there's that.
Yeah, that's gonna cancel. Yeah, the original one was Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, Tucker, Abreu, Pena, McCormick, Myers, and Maldonado. That's what's been them there all day. That's their standard. Everybody's mostly healthy lineup. I thought they might. What's up with Jose Abreu? He doesn't have a home run yet this year.
Yeah, I guess no steroids.
I thought it was putting on a new uniform for the first time in however long.
He's Cuban, right?
Yeah.
Wait, is he Cuban? He's Cuban, right? Yeah, he's Cuban. So like, I would have assumed the steroids were still in his system from being a child, but apparently, I don't know, they're starting to lack. He needs he needs Moderna to make a booster.
Yes, or maybe he's not 36 years old. Maybe he's a little older. Yeah, he was
also possible.
Cruces Cienfuegos, Cuba. There you go.
Yeah.
The only thing worse than my pronunciation is my accent.
Well, now that you're closer to Cuba, maybe you'll pick it up a little bit more.
That'll be fun. I'll have to go visit.
You'll be eating Cubanos all the time. You gotta get yourself in there for it. Cigars.
There's a lot of good stuff They're driving some vintage cars that don't have that have 2-stroke motorcycle engines powering them. This will be a good time.
I'll be
All
honest,
right.
I don't know anything about Cuba other than I like Cuban sandwiches and I don't smoke cigars. If they have any other delicacies or fun things, I don't know them. I know very little about the country of Cuba.
Oh, the coffee. That's right. Oh, there we go. Now I finally got the Astros lined up. Okay.
As do I. So now I could actually run my shit, which is nice. I was hoping that I get to talk about this slate before it locks.
It is sometimes a little funny when we look at baseball. It's so that was the first sport where I really embraced the mass multi-entry lineups, because you're trying to harness leverage, you're trying to understand the synergistic possibilities of stacks, you want to embrace the variant outcome, so that has served me well over the years. I'm having one of my worst years for baseball, but I'm coming off one of my better years for NHL. Not sure that matters. It's all I think I've made money all but 1 year in baseball. This year I'm down like $1,000. So basically I'm treading water. I just need one or two good nights and I'm going to be back solid. Yeah. We still have 120 or so slates left. I got plenty of time to get there. Yeah. So it was just kind of funny. I was looking at my balance and I'm like, oh, that's not going in the right direction. And usually I don't have to worry about that, but there we are.
Baseball season tends to give you some additional opportunities to get back to it. They have a game or two throughout the year. Would you if you could cut the season, would you? Like, is it too long to you?
I used to say, here's my biggest challenge. The playoffs are not the most representative thing for the regular season.
Sure.
It's just not. And I don't know how you mitigate that or change it, because who wants to play more than a potential 7-game series? I think the series are appropriately long, but if you get in a bad stretch, you know your starter maybe goes twice in a series, your best starter. There's just so many ways it doesn't work. I hate the wild card. I hate a 1-game thing deciding if you get into the postseason.
Same.
That's ridiculous, but
awful.
But
that's an awful mechanism.
162 is a lot. I think like 140 would be more realistic. If every team was playing 5 times a week, I think that would be fine.
Okay.
And so everybody gets 2 off days a week, balance the travel days, etc. People say, oh, that's what they're doing now. No, not when you start looking at the calendars in before the All-Star break and after the All-Star break and in August, like teams going like 22 days straight and weird things like that. So it works out to they basically get 1 day off a week throughout the season. But if they had just 2, you could, 26 weeks of the season, knock those off. Now you're down to 140 games, right? So that seems reasonable.
It is weird just because the starting pitcher makes the game itself so different. And like, so every baseball game is a unique experience because the starting pitchers are so wildly different, whether they throw righty or lefty. Like, you don't really see that in any other sports. So you kind of need that bigger sample to like flatten out the extremes of, a 5-man rotation. Because if you only played each team like once in a series, I mean, you'd be rolling through some teams, bringing aces, throwing garbage in some other series. You can't run baseball the same way.
But now with everybody playing everybody else, not just for a shorter series, but for a more expanded game set, and not the NL whatever plays the AL whatever just one time and not every league. The AL East, they hardly play each other by comparison to when they used to play 18 times a season.
It used to be so many.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out in the standings. Like, I was looking at that, and then I saw an article headline pop up earlier today. I didn't get a chance to read it, but they were talking about how it's impacting some of the playoff races, they think. But we'll see.
I hated interleague play when it first happened, and then it was just like, oh, this is fine. Everybody's got to play each other.
Yes, we always wished that they would flip it. So when the National League team would come to Seattle, that's where I was living at the time, we were like, no, get rid of the DH. Let's see what happens without the DH.
Yeah.
My favorite player, Edgar Martinez. Sorry, Edgar, you're going to have to pinch hit for the next 3 days. But
the good old days.
All righty. I'm getting my stuff uploaded, start running. Where have you landed on yours? Are you getting close?
I have not even clicked anything yet, but I have the talking points. Like, I ran my top pitchers tool. I ran my top stacks tool and everything. I just don't have my specific lineups, but there are teams that I am a little bit heavier on, I would say, than maybe the site is right now. Not that that makes it like good or bad or anything, but we have sort of come into agreement. Like I'm heavier on the Mets. I think the Mets have a higher top stack odds than we do, which is just kind of crazy to see. But I've got the Braves second, same story. I've got the Astros third, same story. We have them a little bit closer to each other. I've got the Braves a little bit ahead of Houston. I've got the Padres fourth. We've got the Padres fourth. So there's not a lot of differentiation at the top, at least for me. As I look at the leverage scores, there aren't any real extremes. The biggest negative leverage play is the Royals. Like, I'm quite confident I'm not going to be getting to much Kansas City here, if at all. I think it's crazy to see that the Mets are 21% likely to be the top stack on DraftKings today, and they're essentially properly owned. Their leverage is basically zero. That's wild to see on a 12-game slate for the most owned team. So fascinating that they're just really, really a good option. And I agree with it. That's a direction that I want to go. But I don't really have too many. Like, after you get past the Mets, I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 teams between 2.8 and 3.8% chance of being a top stack. Like, there's no choose whoever you want in that range. There's no separation there. You're never feeling confident taking one of those teams. You're either at the absolute top with the Mets, this second tier of, I guess, Atlanta and Houston, or it's kind of like every other team is basically the same, except for don't play Oakland. Oakland's always dog shit.
Yes.
They're just never appealing.
No, far from it. And even what they had that series in Kansas City where they had moments, and that's really about it. So I'm just letting my stuff run. I wanted to get all these things set up, because when we have this many games, it takes a long time to run the 4-for-4. So I've got everything.
I just got mine done.
Okay.
I just got my crunch done. 5,563 lineups. So now let's see what that ends up looking like.
I have a feeling yours runs way faster than mine. I'm guessing you put a lot more randomness on and then take it out in your sorts.
Yes. Yeah. I want bulk. Adam and I have been playing around in ChatGPT, trying to learn programming a little bit more. And for situations like MMA, it's really easy to write a script that creates every possible lineup. There aren't that many combinations. There's 12, 13 fights. There's only so many permutations that you can get to. Baseball's slightly different. I clicked it today to run it just to think like I didn't know how quickly something could run. And there were like, I don't know, hold on, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Per whatever I ran today, the amount of combinations was an 18-digit number. I got to 1 million and just stopped because I was not even in the ballpark. So back to the drawing board on that one.
All right. I am, someone was asking about Randy Vasquez, so I'm going to pull up a little information about him. I'm curious to see how much he has played or what. So he's 24 years old. He is obviously with the Yankees. Looking at his game log, he has thrown in the minors in his last starts going backwards, 84, 88, 95, 90, 89, 92, 83 pitches. I would guess we're going to get him for 75 to 80 pitches today. Only reason I have kind of that tamped down a little bit, it's his first start, right? These are stressor pitches. It's you're out there for the first time in the major leagues. Everything's going to feel like you're throwing a no-hitter. Everything's going to be magnified. You're going to be putting more behind it than you do unless you get in. If you're not settled down, you're going to be wasting pitches. You're going to be just off, yada, yada, yada. Yes, so that answer says he is in play on DraftKings at that price. I'm okay with it. On your point per pitch basis, you can get there. Now, they've been a little more relaxed on some of their pricing. FanDuel, you don't need to go there. FanDuel, do it, build out whatever you want. I probably wouldn't go there on Yahoo either, but I think he's in play on DraftKings. I set him at 20%. I'm willing to get that in. And that was before me even knowing that we should get some bulk from him. Could he go negative today? Yeah, absolutely. Right. This isn't like it's the easiest of matchups for him, because Texas has been one of the better offenses, and they were doing a lot of that without Corey Seager. So tonight, of course, Corey Seager's back. He was dealing with that hamstring injury that knocked him out for 4 weeks or so. But they've got what looks to be their usual top 6. Jonah Heim's not in. He must be hurt because I haven't seen his name in a couple of days. But you've got Semien Seager, Nate Lowe, Adolis Garcia, Josh Jung, and then kind of their replacement level guys, Leodis Taveras has some speed. He's kind of interesting in the outfield. The other guys were batting higher in the lineup. So now Robbie Grossman is a 7-hitter, way better than Robbie Grossman as a 2-hitter, right? So they're a pretty good lineup. I read the wrong way. Sorry. San Diego. Vasquez is going against San Diego. Grayson Rodriguez. There's your Grayson Rodriguez analysis, folks. Going against, Vasquez going, it's still tough matchup, good offense. They've been a struggling offense, the Padres. They are without Manny Machado, but they are still pretty damn good. When you look at Tatis, Cronenworth, Soto, Xander Bogaerts, Rougned Odor, Matt Carpenter he's hitting around 200, but he still has extra base upside. He's carved himself out a role as a DH here, kind of coming back from the netherworld. So it's a tough lineup there. I still have zero issue going to him. You're hoping for 4 innings and your 70-75 pitches. If you get relatively clean innings, 2-3 earned runs, half a dozen base runners, and 4, 5, 6 strikeouts, we're going to be thrilled on DraftKings. If he gets 12 DKP, 15 DKP, you're doing cartwheels. So I think that's kind of where it lands.
Well, I ran my stuff. I don't know, whatever I said before is bullshit. Wow. Okay.
That's what a Chinese spy would say.
It is what a Chinese spy would say. Well, I mean, I'm going to talk about it, I guess, but I have Max Scherzer again.
Okay. This is a development.
Yeah, it developed in a direction that I was not expecting it to. Now, I will say, Mets are still my number one. I am getting still to a lot of Rockies. Those things have not changed. But I am now playing quite a bit of Max Scherzer. So in lineups where I don't have the Rockies, I probably have Scherzer now. Kevin Gausman, Hunter Brown, Freddie Peralta, all at the top. But I have pretty significantly flattened out my pitcher exposures and now have... the problem for me right now is Max Scherzer's projected ownership, which we currently have at 0.5%. I am going to manually change that to 2 just to make my life a little bit better. Otherwise, I think I'm going to have all of the Max Scherzer. And I do think that he'll be slightly more owned because his name's Max Scherzer. So I don't mind going, I don't want that to be the extreme for me. As of right now, it is. But for right now, it's team Max Scherzer. That's where I'm at.
So, if you look at his last 2 games, 20, 22 DraftKings points, 86, 83 pitches, you can talk yourself into it.
Yeah.
And even if you're game log watching and you're like, I'm going to throw out that Detroit game because that was after a 3-week layoff, and everybody should destroy Detroit, but he didn't, whatever. But he took care of business against his former team, the National. Detroit's another one of his former teams, and then he made it through Cleveland. And he got 5 strikeouts against Cleveland. Cleveland is a team that typically doesn't give up a lot of strikeouts, so that's relatively good to see. Scherzer's stuff should play well at Coors Field because he's more of a power pitcher than worried about breaking stuff. So you could get there. This is going to be a fun one. We could see we will know tonight if Josh will have a single solitary tear rolling down his cheek or if he will be fist pumping about the 7th inning. That's when we'll know what Josh is.
I have 31% Max Scherzer right now.
Holy cow! I have 3.1% Max Scherzer.
Again, part of me hates it and part of me loves it. I think both things can be true. I think the Rockies can be an interesting GPP team. And I also think that Max Scherzer should not be 1% owned today, given what's around him. Is Freddie Peralta 30-1 here to be a better option than Max Scherzer today? It's 30% ownership to Peralta and 1 to Scherzer.
Peralta's had a couple dicey starts lately. The talent's there, but he's... Yeah, it's baseball. Your best pitchers are going to have 8 to 10 bad starts.
Yeah.
That's your borderline Cy Young guys are going to have 8 to 10 bad starts. That's a third of their starts. Right?
I'm down to 21% Scherzer, and that is where it's going to hold. I bumped his ownership slightly, assuming he will get some ownership. So I am there now. I have 71 Mets 5-mans.
Okay, so that's that's something that I think is always interesting on FanDuel is stacking a team and then going with the pitcher. If these kind of even a mediocre outcome potential, which I would say Scherzer tonight is a mediocre outcome potential, but we're playing for win points here as well. So if you got the offense stack backing your pitcher, that can be, there is synergy. It's not completely directly correlated because pitcher still has to take care of 9 opposing hitters.
It's a nice tiebreaker.
Yeah.
That's the way that I like to say it. Like, if the stack goes off, then you're probably in good shape to get that win. And I don't think that there's any downside the opposite direction. So it's like a very small bump that you probably don't need to pay attention to all that frequently. But I don't ever hate having the pitcher go with my stack.
All right. Let's use this moment to, we mentioned how you guys could get onto Sleeper there with a site that's offering a $100 deposit match with your first deposit. The link is in the description of the YouTube description of our video here. We also have Bet Pro. So if you guys didn't grab that free week of Bet Pro, it's changed. You still get your first month for $24.95. So it's less than $1 a day. It is a lot of fun. We've got baseball obviously in full swing here, but that's something that you want to have a good projection site for, or something to tell you where you are on strikeouts. It's incredibly helpful. So I really have enjoyed Bet Pro. If you get the full package, you can get Bet Pro for the other prop-based sites as well, not just all the sports books. That's a lot of fun. Looking at the different sports, basketball, we've still got at least one game left in this series. We could get 2, and then we got the NBA Finals. So you buy into that Bet Pro now, and then you're going to get the basketball coming along with it as well. But it's a lot of fun. That's a good introductory offer. And then you test it out. See if you like it. If you like it, you're going to want it for football season. It was a lot of fun having that for football season. So check that out. That is Bet Pro. It is $24.95 for your first 30 days. And then it's $29.95 weekly. So we're giving you basically a whole month for less than the 1 week price. And then you can get it for $99.95 per month. This does pretty much pay for itself. That's a guarantee we don't want to throw around, but it is making you money. I've had success here. Even your old pal has had success in the sports wagering looking at this. And then you always can get into the Discord channels and see what's up with some of the other people there that they can help you out. And that would be, like not Josh. Josh doesn't do sports betting, but you can get.
I want to.
Yeah, you can get Greg in there. He's always answering questions. Lindquist is always answering questions. They've had to answer all my questions when sports betting went live in Virginia a couple years ago before we had any of these offerings. So they're very good at it. I trained them well by asking all the questions. But check that out. That is Bet Pro here. All right. I've run 2 waves of my stuff. I'm now going to go in. I'm not worried about leveraging hitters against pitchers tonight. Let's see where everybody landed. Well, you know what? I may need a little bit of love going. The Minnesota Twins are so bad. They're missing like half their team right now on the injured list here. So Gausman can go sideways from time to time. I don't know that we need a stack against him. I think stacking against Freddie Peralta is not the worst thing to do with 3 or 4 of the San Francisco batters. And then I think going against George Kirby with a couple of the better Pirates hitters, not a bad way to go either. I think going against Hunter Brown is kind of fool's gold. Going with anybody on the Athletics, save that for the late slate. And then allow 2 or 3 hitters to go against Hunter Brown, because maybe one of them will get a home run, but the other guys are going to strike out for him. But I don't see any need to go direct leverage. When we get these larger slates, there's usually not quite the 36% for Gausman, a third for Peralta, and then everybody else is 25% or less. It's not worth burning stacks, in my opinion, against these guys. You're better off saying, I'm going below what the field is doing for these pitchers. That's a better way to get leverage than the other way around. So what's surprising you tonight that's popping up besides the Scherzer revelation there?
Nothing really too crazy. Like I said, I have a pretty sizable stand on the Rockies right now. They are my second most exposed stack. I have 33 5-mans of the Rockies today. Getting to 20% of someone like Charlie Blackmon. The lowest I have of anybody is Alan Trejo, just 6%. That's all, coming from the Colorado side of this one. So Coors is going to be a big part of my night. which I'm more than okay with. After that, like because of how much Mets and Rockies I have, like they're in 104 of my 150 lineup. So I only have 46 other 5-mans. The Padres, I have 17 of. The Angels, I have 15 of. The Astros, I have 11 of. A couple stragglers of the Braves, the Nats, the Orioles. But pitching ownership, other than me having too much Max Scherzer, maybe Kevin Gausman, Hunter Brown, Freddie Peralta, George Kirby, they're the 4 highest exposed pitchers that I have. So I don't, no real craziness coming from the arm side. Sale, Detmers, Grayson Rodriguez. I have a lot less Bieber now than I had earlier, which is a little surprising to me. But in terms of my exposures, other than the fact that I'm just getting so much Colorado, nothing is standing out to me as something that I didn't expect.
All right. That makes sense. Do you typically go, because I haven't seen too many baseball shows with you this year. I haven't been able to watch as much as our baseball coverage as I usually do, but I know you've been wrapping up basketball.
I haven't done many of them.
Do you go that, are you typically that concentrated on offenses, or is this just kind of a product of a great matchup in Coors Field for the Mets? And
I think it's a little bit of both. Like there's nothing that I ever stop for that situation to happen. So it does come up from time to time. I think this particular slate is very unique given the huge gap in implied total between the Mets and the next closest team. Like it's a chasm today. You're also getting the Mets on the road in Colorado, so you're locking in those 9 innings. You know, it doesn't have to be 8 for today. I love they just look so much better than everybody else. Like I think our top stack tool has the Mets at 21%. I got it to 30. So even if I'm a tad high there, which is very certainly possible, I've been a tad high before. They're still like the top scoring stack 25% of the time. The real big issue is that they're also really affordable. Like they're a good value stack. They're the second best value stack today too. And that's where it starts to get really problematic. I actually have them slightly ahead of the Nats. So they're 1-1 for me. When you're going to get a team that projects like that, I'm just going to be naturally concentrated. And I'm just going to hope that, you know, if they're only, we have their ownership share at 19%. Let's just say let's round up. Let's say we're a little low and it's 20. That's still 80% of the lineups that don't have Mets. I'm in for just like cornering the market at that point.
So how, okay, no, that answers the question better. It's just, it's one of those that surprises me just a touch. But because I've gone back and forth with how I do stacking, and I've evolved over the years. And you see, I'm playing different contest sizes, etc., where you do things differently. And as people get more and more sophisticated, that's something that's been quite important. Here in the DFS world, you've got to be cognizant of who are going to be in your contest. If you're doing on DK, if you're playing above the $5 mark, you're going against the apex predators, the name that you're always used to seeing at the top of the leaderboards. They're going to be in any contest at that size. So you want to play things smarter. You don't, they're the fish. Are there fish at baseball at this point in the baseball season? Not really. And then even the more casual folks are going to be gone by the end of the All-Star break. They won't be coming back after that. So you have to pick your spots and know your formats, et cetera. Because that similar to Odd Shopper, finding those better lines, knowing your contest selection is a dramatic difference here. So I think that always key.
I've talked to Adam a little bit about it. One of the reasons that I don't mind being so concentrated is with how top heavy this is, I'm willing to just say on a certain day, I might not like today, for instance, if this is a 3-2 game in Coors and Scherzer's it doesn't even matter really at that point what Scherzer does. But if this game is just pedestrian scoring, I'm okay with just knowing that there are going to be some slates that I'll never win. But on the day that I'm right, and I get one of those concentrated teams correct as one of the highest scoring teams of that slate, I just want to give myself as many bullets on that day that I can, instead of just having like a couple each day over the course of a year. I'd rather just take giant bets and hope that some days I'm just going to have like 30 potential options at the top and hope that it goes well. Mostly this is a question of like tolerance for your bankroll more than anything else. There's no right or wrong way. Like if you want to be like heavily diversified for a particular slate or aggressively concentrated, if you do that for the entire season, I think it probably all comes out in the wash. But like your personal swings might be tough to stomach.
No, that makes sense. And it's been, and producer Mike, if you want to pull up the lineup generator, we'll talk about that here as we're winding down. We got about 6 minutes until lock. But Adam has done a great job of he when he gets in his downswings, he's not afraid to try different things. And he goes into looks at different formats, the 3-man games in the, he used to rail against Showdown. Now he's into 3-man cash games in Showdown, in random NFL slates. He said before, if he could get more action down on the ones that aren't the primetime games, he'd be happy to do that, right? You've got to explore different avenues here, because there are these little edges that, they're like the inches. They're all around us, right? But you got to collect a few of them. So you gotta go find them, and you can't get all of them, and you're going to go crazy trying to get all. But you got to find certain ones where you can push your advantage, and that's something that's important. All righty, here we're going to go show you guys the lineup generator. So this is you guys have a baseball. This is you've seen this for a variety of our sports, but now we've got it up here for baseball. So. The key thing you can remember, it's for the main slates of DraftKings and for FanDuel. You can choose your stacking types. You can do all sorts of configurations. DraftKings, you can go 5-3, 5-0, 4-4. FanDuel, you can go 4-4, 4-3, and then 4-2-2. Which is an interesting way to do it. You can, every lineup that is created is going to be a plus EV or a positive expected value. It means we're not putting any garbage lineups into that. You don't have to really worry about duplication with other gamers or even other people using lineup generator, especially if we're doing baseball, because there are so many 3% owned hitters, right? And even when you pick a chalky build on this, I've done this tons of times, you pick a chalky build, you lock in the top pitcher that you want to go with, will display the top 10 pitchers and the top 10 most popular hitters or most best projected hitters. You can lock in one of each of those. You enterprising folks can't sort that up and down and start writing down all the answers. You go get the regular tools, but that's what's displaying there. And you're going to get lineups, even when you're picking chalky, that are perfectly contrarian. And that's just a function of how baseball works. You want to get in that mindset because basketball is entirely different. It's all about minutes, projections, efficiencies, what's the matchup, etc. Things get out of whack in the playoffs when the stars are playing 38, 42, 44, 46 minutes, or LeBron almost 48. It gets wild. We're back to baseball. Little things can happen. Now, yes, the scoring is the same. So your low-owned guy gets a home run, solo home run. The other guy's more popular guy got a solo home run. Okay, well, that's going to tie the points. But point being, you got extra differentiation there. So let's click on run with this, Mike. Let's go with let's just do chalky lineups for fun, and see what here. Lock in Gaussman because he's going to be the most popular guy, and we can kind of demonstrate here what's happening. So you can build up to 20 lineups, and you can run them. I like to run them as singles, decide, keep or discard. As you hit keep, it goes into a holding pen. You hold up to 20 there. Then you can download them as a CSV. For whichever site you're on, it's going to give you the right player IDs. So you just copy that into your template on either DraftKings or FanDuel, the appropriate site with the appropriate player pool, please. And you can upload those into tournaments. So you can build out your 150 this way if you'd like. You can build out 25. You can build out to 5, however you want. It'll show you the whole player pool here. Now, sometimes when you run a whole like 20 of them and we've locked somebody in and it'll start hitting you with the next most popular guys, you'll get well over 50%. So maybe you don't want to go that route. Now you start looking at some of the players. You can discard a player and bring in another player into that lineup, or you can toss the whole lineup. There's considering this is for your first week is what, like $4.95, and then it's like $9 every week after that. This saves so much time. You $1.30 a day, even when you're paying the highest price, $1.20, whatever it is, that saves so much time, and it's so worth it to know you're not shooting yourself in the foot. And that's the biggest thing with DFS. Don't piss away money if you don't have to.
It's just not going to allow you to play a bad lineup, and that is such a great first step. Because, look, I don't mean this against Fantasy Cruncher, but if you don't know what you're doing in Fantasy Cruncher, you can generate a lot of really bad lineups and never know that you did that. Here, it's basically like the best way to describe it would be the lineup generator is going to be like running antivirus software on your computer like 10 years ago. It's an extra line of defense to stop anything bad from happening. You can still use your computer no matter what. But in this case, if we're getting rid of all of the bad shit at the bottom end, you're just starting from a higher baseline than everybody else. And honestly, for $4.48 for a week. Does it get much better than that? I mean, I will waste $5 in way dumber ways.
Yeah, and that's and what this is also doing for you is you hear Josh and Jake Hari and Adam and all those guys going through, Greg and Lindy, their sorting process, T McBee, balancing out lineups. So what they're doing is they're getting rid of the crappy ones at the bottom. Okay, most everybody can do that, and then they're also sorting it for leverage. Turning the popularity against the field, finding some of those second and third most popular guys that are coming in at a quarter of the most popular guys, and their projection is less than 3%. Their median projections 3% less from that player, so like a 3-pointer, right? So yeah. These are the ways you want to find these angles to do better in DFS, especially in those top heavy contests. This is doing that for you, because the biggest question they get is, well, how do you sort your stuff? How do you do this? And that's the most, other than saying what settings should I use in my optimizer, asking somebody how they sort something is the biggest open question you can give. It's like, well, what do you like more? Do you like volatility? Do you like 0.1% lineups? Do you want to min cash? Are you okay with chalk? Do you hate chalk? Right? It's just, what are you going to do? That's what this product is doing for you.
It's saving everything for you. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you want to get to that point where you're sifting through thousands of lineups and you want to move to that next step, I think this is the perfect way to get your foot in the door to understand how to acquire quality lineups. And then trying to recreate that process for yourself moving forward is, to me, the natural next step.
Yeah, most definitely. But we're at lock, Josh. That was a fun almost an hour. Thank you for Loughran and Adam just taking over a little bit. I mean, who's going to mind if they overrun their time slot just a touch there?
Not that I didn't want to do the show with you, but I told Loughran, like, if you need to go to 7:05, brother, take your sweet time.
We got this. Don't worry. We come in, do 3 reads, and we're out of here. We could have done that for you, Loughran. But I want to thank. I hope Greg Ehrenberg gets better. I'm happy to be here with you guys. Hit that like button. I hadn't asked all show, but please do hit that. It does help us out. And of course, it's a way to keep some free shows coming towards you. We told you about Sleeper app. So down here in the link or in the description, you can get the link to get $100 deposit match for Sleeper. They're coming on to they have a different twist than a lot of these other sites, and I think you're going to like it for their dynamic payout structures, meaning they may be offering different wagers that other sites won't, because they can scale their payouts a little better. So that's a different twist. I hadn't thought of that before, but as I was hearing Loughran describing it on the other side, I'm like, oh, okay, that's just a little bit different. Okay, yeah. So even as we, the different payouts on the different sites, the different contests they offer, even the different lines that they have, there's edges now because there are so many of these player prop sites out there. This looks like it could be among the best if you have a certain type of bet that you want to get down there. And we can say bets now. We don't have to do this whole skill game charade anymore. That's my favorite part about all of this. So been around a long time doing this. But you guys can follow Josh over there on Twitter. You can get him at Josh Engleman. Check out some of his video recommendations that he is putting out. You can find me at EMac DFS. Hat tip to producer Mike. You can get us at stochastic_com. With that, gamers, good luck.